Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome, thank you for everyone coming down today. We're just going to get started and settle in now. MashaAllah, it's a good turnout. Many thanks for everybody who came to last week's event, the One State Palestine we had in the other room, and the decision was made that there is no two-state solution, okay? So it's a one-state solution, no solution, one-state campaign. That's what we're all going to be firing on. If you don't know, there are people who came from last week's meeting. Please speak to them or follow the One State Palestine campaign, which are basically is explaining what's happened, but also there is an online video as well you can watch and what a lot of the speakers said. And Ousman, Noor, mashallah, was one of the speakers there from last week's event, and Sister Shahd as well. Now, before we begin, we're just going to have a bit of entertainment, and I will bring on the lineup. This brother sang last week very passionately, and you'll see from his song where we go from tonight. Today's event is in relation towards military intervention. We'll discuss a bit more about that once the brothers finish singing. So everybody make a round of applause for the one and only Birmingham's finest, Abid Beg.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Thank you.
Remember that movie from '93, the one about the end times war, us and the machine. Well, in my lifetime, what do you know? We've got the live stream West End and Broadway show. But I will not live quietly while the battle goes on.
Come on, guys.
I will not live quietly
While the battle goes on.
I will not live quietly while the battle rages on.
Come on, everyone.
I will not live quietly.
Let the Palestinian people hear you. I know you, brother. You got Palestine.
Beautiful, beautiful. They say it's over, it's the last stand. They're all gone, America, they're man. Do your best now, put down those flags, head home and pack your bags. But I will not live quietly while the battle rages on. I will not live.
What we do? Come on, everyone. Let me see clap. If you want to see clap along.
I will
Clap along.
not live quietly while the battle rages on. I will not live quiet until the battle's won. Till the battle's won. Free Palestine!
Palestinian, free, 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 from the river to the sea,
Palestine will be free!
from the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free!
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Many thanks to Brother Abid Beg. This is how we do things, brother. If you're not used to it, yeah? We have at least three, we have 2 pull-ups where I come from. If a song is bad, you have to pull it up. You understand? You know, you can't just let the song, it's disrespectful to the song and what we're singing about. The battle goes on. We ain't gonna go quietly. We won't be silenced. That's why activist independent movement are having these open discussions and events so the society and everybody can get educated. Not just your usual activists are day in, day out, you know, they've been there for the last 2 years. We want to bring in fresh people to let everybody know what's going on. Simple story. I went across the shop to get some biscuits. I wasn't sure myself, are they boycott or not? You know, I'm not going to lie, but I don't get certain things anyway. But for the people that come in to cater, we said, are they boycott? And auntie start asking me, you know, about this, what's going on, why are you boycotting for? Then I had to tell her what's the reason why I'm doing it. She said, oh, how does it benefit? I said, because it hits them in their pocket, auntie. And she goes, but I go to Lidl, it's short distance. I said, auntie, go to Aldi's. Yeah, but it's a bit far. Auntie, £2 in taxi, you'll go down the road. At least, yeah, even though you're paying £2 more, at least you're hurting them in the pocket. So I said, what you do is now you know, go and tell another 10 aunties. Told the kid, I said, go on Google, get all the boycott photos, because aunties won't go by names, they will go by photos, so they know when they go to the shops, this is what we boycott. These are simple, simple things that we do, and it's good to see that we don't have the usual crowd. So thank you very much for coming today. I want you to give a big shout to our blessed speakers who come here, our partner in crime, Brother Ousman Noor from the Military Intervention Campaign, who has been calling out for this since the genocide started. He would tell you his background shortly himself, but he has a United Nations background. He knows what he's talking about. He's a human rights barrister as well. So give him a round of applause. He's one of our speakers and co-event organizers as well. But at the same time, you already met this lovely lady, Shahd Karaeen. You know, she's a Palestinian. She's also into poetry, so she'll be reading some poetry today as well. And also make some noise for Sister Lubna Speitan, who's also come all the way down from London. She's one of our allies as well. She'll tell you a bit more where she's from as well. You know, she'll be one of our speakers. Make some noise for the one and only Franck Magennis. Where's he gone? Yes, he's another barrister. He knows his law. These gentlemen, Ousman as well, they're going to explain their side, the legalities, meaning of military intervention. It's not just like we're going to pick up arms and start running over there. No, 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 no. They're going to tell you exactly what's going to be happening, okay? But at the same time, we also got a singer as well, and a speaker as well, Mr. Damon Minchella. Make some noise for him. We also got Mr. Maung, Zarni. Can you make some noise for this gentleman over here? Make some noise for that Shazia Akhtar all the way down from London as well. She works in the charity organizations. Make some noise for our Palestinian brother. You know, come on, bro. This is Birmingham, you know, liven up. Yeah, that's how we roll. Brother Omer Hussein, make some noise for him. Now I have covered everything, everyone, haven't I? Yes. And I'm your host, Brother Daniel, from the Activist Independent Movement. Make some noise for the Activist Independent Movement, volunteers and workers. You know, our brother Arif, he's always been there, helping all the way down, but this time he's kind of unleashed me on my own. And make some noise for the One State Palestine team as well, who always been there, helping us as well. So shout out to all our allies that have come all the way down from, we got all the way away from Southampton. You know, so make some noise. We got Stoke in the place. We got people from North down here. So we got from London, we got loads of people, and our local people as well. Make noise for every one of you that come here today as well. Really, really appreciate you guys coming. It's a good turnout. And please, please spread the word, let people know what's happening out here, what we're trying to achieve, okay? There will be a bit of drama, okay? But what we say to everybody is no panel attacks, no attacks from the audience. You got a valid question, we'll have a question answered. Please do ask the question. If the panel can answer it, they will answer it, okay? But no shouting and screaming and, you know, let's do this properly because you've been live streamed from many places, so I forgot them totally. Make some noise for the press team as well, okay? And the social media influencers in here as well who are live streaming. Make some noise for Carlos TV Live as well. He's here, always comes and supports the events. Now, we're going to start off with our sister, Shahd Karaeen. You know, she's going to speak to you about some poetry, okay? You know, I'll let her introduce herself. Fire away, sister. Yes, stand up, sister. Yeah, come round.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shahd. I'm a Palestinian poet from Jerusalem. I'm just going to recite some of my poetry, and later on I can tell you more about my background and what I stand for. So this poem called Let's Rise. By sirens and shadows, bringing fear and despair, within the roots, it's our home. The rubble and ruins, truth won't erase. Palestine runs in our blood. In the face of loss, we refuse to break. Gather your strength. Let's rise. You rise, we rise. From the cries of the innocent, mourning a mother, a father, a family or friend. Through the nights of bombs, through the unknown. Cease fire with nowhere to go. For the children who've wept, for a childhood that's gone. Let's rise. You rise, we rise, for the hopes that are shattered, for the future lost. We stand as one. Let's lift our heads high. Let our voices resound. Let us be heard. Let it echo our message aloud to the world. Let's rise. We rise. You rise. They try to silence us, to erase us all. Free, free Palestine, freedom for all. Thank you. So, this one dedicated to everyone. I'm angry. This is called I'm Angry. I am angry at the world. Angry at its silence. Angry at the bombs that never stop. Angry at the cameras that turn away. I cry as I watch Palestine, Sudan, Congo. Names ignored, carved into stone and blood. I am angry at the leaders. Angry for their lies. Angry, so angry, they approved genocide. I am angry for the mothers burying their children, skeletons starved to death, not having a chance to grow. I am angry watching mouths starved, broken bodies, scattered limbs beneath the rubble. I am angry. I am numb. I am so numb. I'm screaming inside. I am angry. Thank you.
Make some noise, this is the Shahd, beautiful poetry. Now, I'm going to introduce you to our host, Mr. Ousman Noor, who's basically started this campaign, the military intervention. And more than ever now, everybody is seeing the situation in Gaza over the last few days, what's been happening, more and more deaths happening, more and more direct targets. They're killing people, burning people alive. We've been watching this for the last 2 years. There's no alternative but for a one-state Palestine and a military intervention now. Now, there are legalities behind this. The panel will explain to you what the legalities are. You see United Nations have turned around and said there's a genocide going on. You also see now the media starting to turn their attention as well now. There's coming on side, there's a genocide going on. It might be 2 years too late, but Sajid Khan has also said there's a genocide live stream going on in Gaza. And also they turned on the government as well. So people are waking up now. And also the brother Ousman Noor explained on the 18th of September what happened. You know, the decision of them not coming onto Gaza. Now is more than ever a military intervention is needed because there's a legal precedent in place now. It's going to kick in. This is how revolutions people begin. The people have to stand up. 2 years, activists, political leaders, they've been standing up against the Zionist regime. Like the last week, everyone said, smash Zionism. That's what we've got to start doing now. There's no alternative ifs or buts left. A one-state Palestine and a military intervention now. Revolutions have begun everywhere. Revolutions have begun where we're standing in England. When King Charles decided to bring a foreign army on these shores, the people rose and defeated the king. Correct or not? Yes? Then when the French Revolution started as well, it started by the people. Same in Russia, same in Spain, same when you go back to where the British Empire was in India and Pakistan. 300 years they ruled But the people rose, leaders rose, and they took them on, and they defeated them, and they got them out. They got their independence. Most people still got them as a king, head of state, but they got in their independence by the right channels as well. You know, they resisted. Now a revolution is beginning, and we need a military intervention in Gaza now. There's a flotilla going there right now, and people are frightened. There have been already 2 drone attacks. Needs to stop. People need to rise. Countries need to rise. They need to help them get there safely, because we know it can get nasty, and they said it will get nasty. So make some noise for Brother Ousman Noor, who's going to turn around and tell us what's going on. So make some noise for Ousman Noor. Viva, viva revolution! Viva, viva revolution!
Viva revolution! Thank you, Brother Daniel. Thank you to the activist independent movement for organizing this event, for your tireless solidarity with the Palestinian people, for the countless hours that you've put in to make these events happen. Brother Daniel was 8 hours in the rain last night, putting up leaflets, putting up posters to make these events happen. This takes dedication. Thank you for making this event happen. And while this event has no political affiliation, I want to also thank you to the Workers' Party, the team at One State Palestine, for lending your support, for all of you who have come here today, for taking time out of your Sundays, and to the media team. Thank all of you for coming. But let us begin, not with a round of applause to ourselves, but for the armed resistance to Israel, those within Palestine and those from Yemen, Lebanon, Iran, and citizens of all countries of the world, Muslims and non-Muslims, who have paid and continue to pay the ultimate price for their armed resistance to the Zionist entity. May they succeed. Long live the Intifada! Long live the armed resistance! We are gathered here to unite in our call for a military intervention to stop the genocide and to dismantle the apartheid state of Israel and its illegal occupation of Palestine. This evening you will hear from Palestinian and non-Palestinian allies, all of them with a profound knowledge, experience and insight of resistance to the Zionist settler colonial occupation of Palestine. All of us united in the call for military intervention. We ask that you listen carefully to each speaker with an open heart and with an open mind, and participate when the open floor comes for feedback and questions afterwards. Our vision for this event is that you will leave not only feeling convinced that military intervention against Israel is the right and legal way forward, but that you also recognize your own power, your own agency to make it happen, and work together as a community of people of all backgrounds, as we can see here, united in determination to succeed in this objective. But first, our starting point. The liberation of Palestine demands our own individual liberation from Zionist domination. Professor Noam Chomsky told us that the whole point of state propaganda is to narrowly limit the parameters of acceptable debate, to subdue a population and prevent meaningful resistance to their oppression. But this evening, we have all awakened to the mischief of state propaganda, and we will go outside those parameters entirely, and we will bring you the uncensored truth. Israel has been exterminating the Palestinians for decades, and for the last 2 years, we have all watched a live-streamed genocide broadcast worldwide. We have watched in horror as the apartheid state has committed the worst atrocities known to mankind, the systematic annihilation of the Palestinian people. And through it all, we have watched. Nothing we have done so far has stopped Israel from continuing this genocide. Hundreds of millions have protested worldwide, but this public outrage has been insufficient. Boycotts have been insufficient. Resolutions of the United Nations General Assembly, insufficient. Binding orders of the International Court of Justice, insufficient. Arrest warrants of the International Criminal Court, insufficient. Every judicial and diplomatic mechanism that the world has to offer has been deployed to stop and restrain Israel, But nothing we have done so far has stopped the continuation of their unlawful, unhinged, relentless massacre of Palestinians, with recent figures now suggesting up to 680,000 Palestinians slaughtered. There is one simple reason that Israel hasn't stopped. It is committed to the extermination of Palestinians. It is committed. It says it in the very definition of genocide. Intention. Israel intends to physically destroy Palestinians, and it has been doing so right under our noses for decades. In 1937, Joseph Weitz, director of the then Jewish National Fund's Land Settlement Department, wrote the following: "It must be clear that there is no room in the country for both peoples. The only solution is a land of Israel without Arabs. There is no way but to transfer the Arabs from here. Not one village, not one tribe should be left. And the form of the transfer needs to be the creation of a refuge for them in Iraq, in Syria, and even in Transjordan. There is no other way out." And in 1941, when Weitz began to organize a plan for the practical ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, he stated, "From now on, it is necessary to work on a secret but fundamental plan on the transfer of the Arabs from here, which will be implemented under the supervision of an Anglo-American committee. Our redemption will come only if the land is vacated for us." That was in 1941, and that is exactly what they have been doing every day since then. Hundreds of Palestinian towns were razed to the ground, thousands slaughtered, and millions forced to leave their land in 1948 in a Nakba that has never actually ended. They don't see Palestinians as humans, not worthy of human life. It is, as Palestinian writer Edward Said said many decades ago, the only good Palestinian is one that is either dead or expelled. They have no use for us. The genocide we have been witnessing in Gaza for the last 2 years is but the continuation of the same ethno-nationalist supremacy based on pure violence that has no regard for law or morality, and which in 1948 even Albert Einstein and many other Jewish scholars described as closely akin in ideology, methodology, and philosophy to the Nazis themselves. In 1948, that was written. Why have we let this happen? If we have known for decades that Israel is committed to the extermination, then why haven't we stopped them? Why haven't we? Well, let us be kind to ourselves. Zionism doesn't just occupy Palestine, it has occupied the entire world. In Palestine, those who have resisted Israel have been subjected to decades to mass rape, slaughter, torture, and genocide. And outside of Palestine, those who have spoken up for Palestine have been subjected to repression, targeted attacks, and silencing. These are the tools of the Zionist entity. Brute, violent power, blackmail, corruption, all of it to sustain the genocide of Palestinian land and people. But comrades, there is good news. The story doesn't end there. There is a force far greater than every tool at their disposal. That force is living and breathing today in Birmingham. It is beating in every city worldwide. That force is Al-Haq, the truth, the irrepressible truth. As Arundhati Roy said, no propaganda can hide the wound that is Palestine. Israel is a fascist state. It is a lawless state. It is a rogue state. It cannot be negotiated with and must therefore be defeated militarily until every one of their tools is broken and every perpetrator is brought to account. I have some more good news. It is now a legal obligation for this to happen. International law is on our side. Multiple rulings of the International Court of Justice, arrest warrants of the International Criminal Court, resolutions of the United Nations General Assembly all now confirm that under international law, every state in the world has an obligation to use military force against Israel to stop the genocide, to break the illegal siege, to implement a no-fly zone, open all the gates to Gaza and deliver food, aid and resources to all Palestinians, to force all occupation forces and illegal settlers out of Palestine. Their deadline was the 18th of September, 3 days ago. The only right they have left is to get out. This is international law. Israel must be smashed militarily, and people worldwide must now mobilize to make it happen until the Intifada succeeds and Palestine is free from river to sea. Let me address you. Palestine! Let me address you on the most important part. How do we as a community individually move forward? Many of you may think it's obvious that Israel must be defeated militarily. Perhaps some of you have entertained the thought and thought, how will this actually work? The US is dominant. They keep supplying arms. We have the belligerence of the UK, the state in which we live in. We have the complicity of Zionist media. How do we succeed in moving forward? If we are to succeed, we will need a force militarily powerful enough to actually do it. The existing armed resistance to Israel, including from within Palestine and from within the Axis, have repeatedly shown us that Israel is weak. They have good technology. Their soldiers are weak. Their morale is weak. Their ideology is weak. They are now more diplomatically isolated than ever before in their history. Even their primary supporter, Donald Trump of the United States, is feeling the burn of resistance to Zionism among his own population. The MAGA diehard started to wake up and challenge Zionist domination in their own backyard. Yes, they still rule over the old world order, but that old world order is dying. A new one is emerging. For the first time this year, states are uniting in their commitment to stop Israel. President Gustavo Petro of Colombia, who has shown solidarity with the Palestinians, not just in words but in actions. 30% of Israel's coal supply was coming from Colombia prior to October 2023. We can fault them for that. They shouldn't have been, ever. But President Gustavo Petro very early on said, we're going to terminate Israel's supply of coal from us. I was working in Jordan at the time, advocating for that to happen, because the other state was South Africa. Two of the biggest allies of the Palestinians were the two biggest suppliers of coal. And they realized what they needed to do, and both states had political, legal commitments that have now been implemented to stop the supply of coal. Now think about what that meant. Taking on their own Zionist lobbies, taking on their own Zionist media, taking on the hegemony of the US to say no more for Israel. But most importantly, President Gustavo Colombia has called upon the Hague Group of Palestine, which includes Cuba, Malaysia, South Africa, Namibia, Senegal, Honduras, and Bolivia to form an armed protective force for Palestine. These are states with a history of solidarity with Palestine and a history of smashing Western colonial occupation off their land and the people. Imagine if these states were to send navies now, as we've been advocating for, to Gaza, to protect the existing Freedom Flotilla, to break the siege, civilians from all over the world have already shown their willingness to take on the siege, willingness to risk their lives, willingness to be detained, to do what states should be doing. We've seen them bomb the flotilla several times. Those people on the flotilla do not want to be bombed. They do not want to be detained. They want to break the siege. Now more than ever, these very states must send military vessels to break the siege. This is politically feasible. It is a moral necessity. It is a legal obligation. What is missing is political courage. How do we make this happen? Palestinian man who served his entire life in the armed resistance to the Zionist entity was murdered by the Israeli occupation forces last year. And before that murder, he wrote a final will and testament. In this, he wrote, "Before it was a battle of bodies, it was a battle of spirit." We are in that battle right now. And it is from Gaza that our spirit is empowered. Fadi Abu Salah, a poster you'll see of him, a Palestinian father of 5, whose legs were blown off from the Israeli artillery shelling, was then killed in 2014 by Israeli snipers on the Great March of Return, when hundreds of thousands of Palestinians marched peacefully to the border with Israel to return to their original homes. 70% of those in Gaza were forced into Gaza from their original homes. And on that march were then slaughtered by the Israeli occupation forces. Fadi Abu Salah, in a wheelchair, attended, and with his slingshot, resisted. It is his spirit, though he is dead, that lives with us today. Fadi showed all of us what true power looks like. The power to face your oppressor, even after they have taken everything from you. And with your very last breath, show your oppressor that resistance is a sacred duty. When you have everything taken away from you, all that remains is freedom. Freedom to smash your oppressor. Freedom to resist. Freedom to pick up a stone and throw it at your oppressor. Freedom to say no. Freedom to say this is my land. Freedom to say this belongs to me. Freedom to say I will not take it anymore. So join the fight. We are one with the people of Palestine. Their fight is our fight. Join this call for military intervention. Demand that this is the way forward at protests. This is the way forward, as political representatives of 5 have already done this week. Call for military intervention. Jeremy Corbyn, Zara Sultan are missing. Why are states not calling for what is their legal obligation? Because we are not calling for it. Break out of the propaganda. Demand what is right. Demand what is true. I lived in Jordan last year among Palestinian family. Before I close and hand to the next speaker, I want to teach you what I learned. At midnight at New Year's Eve, thousands of us gathered outside the US Embassy and took a pledge that we would not abandon the people of Gaza. A message was delivered to the complicit leaders of the Arab world. A man took a microphone and he said, "Man ladei al-quwatu, nahna al-shab. Man ladei al-sultatu, nahna al-shab." I request that all of you join me now. Repeat in English this message and remember it always. Who has power? We the people. Who has authority? We the people. Who has power? We the people. Who has authority? We the people. Who has power? We the people. Who has authority? We the people. Man ladei al-quwatu, nahna al-shab. Man ladei al-quwatu, nahna
Let's get a round of applause for Ousman Noor for a passionate speech and leading the military intervention campaign for the last 3 years. Come on, you can do better than that. Marshall, a passionate speech. Can't be any better than that, the way he's put it. If you didn't understand that, you need to watch it again. You understand? That's why we should record it. Mashallah, we've got to keep moving for military intervention. We've got many more speakers to come yet. I'm also going to move forward now to our next speaker. She's from, can please. Our next speaker is from all the way from London. Is also a Palestinian contemporary artist. She's very, very good at what she does. Art-wise, she's also a Palestinian activist as well, been in the movement for a very, very long time. So make some noise for our one and only Lubna Speitan, who's going to be coming speaking about military intervention as well. So if you get a chance, everybody, follow the sister on Instagram, but at the same time, go on the website as well. You can see some of the artwork that sister does, but it's not just the artwork that she does. She'll tell you she's award-winning, artist as well. But more importantly, is what she's been doing for Palestine. So make some noise for Sister Lubna all the way from London.
Hello and assalamu alaikum. I would like to say I am still painting, but at present, and since the last 2 years, the brush has gone down and we've picked up the mic instead. Am I loud enough for everyone at the back there? Yeah, great. I either end up shouting too loud or talking too quietly, so flag me. It's been, as you can see, horrendous. There are just no words. And it's almost like you come here, you give these speeches, it reaches a point where you just feel like there is nothing left to say. And you think the only thing left are our actions, our deeds. We've done the talks, we've done the marches, we've signed the petitions, but still the bombs keep dropping. Still they slaughter our children. Still they're there taking apart from the rubble that the children are buried underneath with their bare hands. Our brave Palestinian brothers and our sisters, those children who sit there clinging to the graves of their parents in the dead of night, our hearts are broken. The rage in our belly, the fire, we pace at night. There's nights you just can't sleep. You can't sleep. You go to sleep, you watch Al Jazeera, you watch the news updates, nothing but more terror, more hell, more pain, more suffering, more starvation, more dead bodies, piles and piles. When does it stop? And it's not something that we've just seen since the 7th of October, no, this is decades. I was raised watching this, the periodic carpet bombing. Oh, let's just reduce the population a little bit more year after year. Oh, there's too many Palestinians, let's just mow the lawn, they call it. So many of our family have already been slaughtered long before the 7th. My cousins imprisoned, tortured, crushed to death by Israeli tanks for resisting, for trying to stop them stealing our homes. My grandmother expelled while she was pregnant with one of my aunties. Forced from their homes, everything taken from them, everything. Every Palestinian that lives in that region, no one is strange. There's no stranger to the pain and suffering. And those of us that have to grow up with the stories of terror from our fathers, from our family, we carry that. That burden we will carry. And I say to my father, who now unfortunately is unwell, we will hold that torch. We won't let our people be forgotten. And as I've just returned from the West Bank visiting my family 6 weeks ago, the situation, of course, escalating, everything gets worse. Every aspect of I don't even say life, it's their existence is crushed and strangled by the oppressor's boot. They're tormented, you've got checkpoints, they're herded like cattle through everything. It's just the drones that hover above their heads, the fear, they cannot speak. They're not allowed to oppose this. When I have an Israeli soldier shove her hand in my father's face and you have to sit there, you can't react. You know, if you react, it's not just you, then your family gets it. Tortured, shot at, God knows what else they'll do next. The dehumanization And to have to walk through those checkpoints with gritted teeth and then unable to, you know what happens when you resist. It's happened to so many Palestinians, not even allowed to wear your keffiyeh. I've worn since I was a child. It's like, no, don't talk about this. Don't react. You know, the Palestinian Authority will imprison you too. It's not even just the Israelis. Even their own governments. We have literally been betrayed by the world leaders, including our own. The liberation will not come from them. The only way forward for any liberation of any people is going to be by force. What's taken by force must be returned by force. And this comes with military intervention, and for me, I support our right to the armed struggle. We must never deny that. When people ask me, do you condemn this? No, do you condemn? You condemn the occupation, the oppression, the stranglehold of our people. I will refuse to condemn the resistance of any oppressed and occupied people because we have that right. Only we can claim self-defense, not the occupier. This double standard, I told them I wouldn't swear, but you know, the goddamn hypocrisy that we've witnessed time and time again, and they want us to condemn, but it's okay, it's the most normal thing in the world, just slaughter our people, you know. And then the moment we rise or we call for resistance, oh, you terrorists, you naughty terrorists. As long as we die quietly in the corner, that's okay. Let's appease our occupiers. We come to places, oh no, you mustn't say that, oh no, anti-Semitic. We are the Semites. Who are the Semites? This narrative, we have to reclaim it. We will keep fighting, we will keep speaking, we will keep writing. Unfortunately, you know, I'd like to get back to my paintings, but no, we have to end up becoming like scholars. We have to learn the UN Charter, the international law, human rights, and every other goddamn thing just so we can challenge this narrative, just so we can enable people to understand we are humans. Yes, we do have rights. Yes, we know, and we must exercise them. Oh, be careful not saying that. You might get arrested. Far worse than facing arrest is the imprisonment. It is all our civil liberties on the line here. If you're not going to oppose such injustice now, what do we have left? What next? What other injustice are we going to pave way for? That will be on our shoulders. And for the children of the next generation, every Palestinian, we know this, we do not live for this dunya, this life. This is not for us. I wish I could say, yes, I would like to pave a way for myself, and there is no self in this. Every single one of those children in Gaza, in the West Bank, they are our children. I do not have my own, but Allah has blessed us with them, and we have to fight and pave the way for whatever is left. I cannot bear to see another child with their limbs blown off, their hearts torn, their mothers, their parents killed. It just shatters the soul of every person to sit here and witness what we are witnessing. In our silence, we would be complicit. We cannot fear what comes for us, but we have to fear what comes if we don't fight, if we don't oppose. So I ask every one of you, and whatever you feel, there's two things that I feel are vital here. One is us as people rising. We need worker-led action. We need people to mobilize the unions who so far are that the silence is a problem. The trade unionists sadly are not as they are in Genoa and other places, but we have to shake them. And we are a force in numbers. This is our power. We have to fight. We have to bring together everyone in our workforce to oppose this, drag the unions to act, force them to act, and if not, we take that power, we mobilize action. And support the resistance, support our right to resist. We have that right. And if this call should land on the ears of our brothers and sisters in the Middle East, I ask them, look in the mirror at what is coming for you if you do not rise now. Our leaders have betrayed us. We are alone. We only have ourselves. And the Arab Spring, and a complete mess, but learn from what didn't work. This time, we have to act. We have to rise, we cannot falter because far worse is coming to us all if we don't. I'd like to thank you all for your time and thank you for keep fighting. Don't forget Palestine. Deeds, not words. Deeds, not words. Deeds, not words. Deeds, not words. Deeds, not words.
All right, everybody, make a round of applause for Sister Lubna Speitan. You know, she's also from Greenwich, Palestine Alliance. It's a pleasure to meet yourself, sister. People can't work together without even meeting. People have been socializing on social media, any events that was happening, people have been sharing and tagging everyone. That's how people get to know what's happening in London, Birmingham, all the way to the north. We have some information about Greenwich, Palestine Alliance. There's information at the back, please take it. If you're down south, you know, there's also people in the south as well. Please support the London independent organizations that are the grassroots activists down there. People know about Power Plus, people know about health workers and Alliance. They're consistently out there with organizations like the Sisters as well, and many other organizations. There's a long list of them, yeah? So make some noise for all those activists out in London who have been day in, day out. There are a lot of activists are out there consistently at the foreign offices, at the embassies. They've been making noise now for the last 2 years. Now, I want to move on to our next guest. So we'll also make a big noise for Sister Lubna once more time. Yeah, beautiful speech. One more time. Now, our next gentleman is tomorrow, right? He's Mr. Maung Zarni. So make some noise for Mr. Maung Zarni. Come on, everyone. Birmingham, wake up, man. Right. Just to let you know, we will be going for a break after this one, okay? So anybody that needs to pray, there's a small mosque around the corner. Come out of the gates, take a left and left again. If people want to get the teas and coffees, if they need some water as well, there's some water available as well. So if you want to go to prayers, you can go coming out of here, take a left and left again. If you're not sure, Brother Arif will be going down there. You can go down with him. So water's out the back if anybody needs any water, and teas and coffees after our next speaker. So, Mr. Maung Zarni is from Bernese, okay? He's an educator, academic, and he's also a human rights activist. He stood up against the violence in the Rohingya genocide. Everybody knows about the Rohingya genocide, what's happened over there. It shouldn't have happened. You know, Brother Zarni is going to tell you a bit more about it. He's also a co-founder of several activist platforms, including the Free Burma Coalition in 1995 to 2004, Free Rohingya Coalition in 2018 and present, yeah? Please, all the way from London as well, make some noise for Maung Zarni. Come on, everybody.
Good evening, and assalamu alaikum. On the 29th of August last year, I was just 1 kilometer outside of Rafah city on the Israeli side at the place called Karaeen Crossing, where Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, so-called, has set up death traps to shoot hundreds of Palestinian children, youth, and anyone who could walk to get some aid to these 4 distribution sites. I heard explosions inside Gaza, near Rafah city at the time. And I was with the interfaith delegation of about 30 Jewish, Christian, Hindu, and myself as a token Buddhist to bear witness. I also saw the Israeli occupation force troops on Humvee and other vehicles, tanks, with their made in USA and made in Israel weapons, coming out after their morning rounds of genocidal slaughter for cold drinks for a break before they go back for the second round. On the way to Karaeen Crossing, we stopped at this kibbutz inn, not too far from Nova Music Festival site. There were a number of Israeli human rights rabbis waiting to have a dialogue with our delegation. There were 2 Palestinian sisters from Michigan and from Washington, D.C., Tamara and Heber. they're descendants of the Nakba survivors, that they've never been to their country of their ancestors. They refused to get off the bus to meet with the Israeli human rights rabbis and other activists because they just could not bear the thought of having to dialogue and hear the other side's story when we, from the bus, could hear the bombs exploding. Imagine that. The IOF airplanes and drones were dropping bombs and killing thousands of children a few miles away, and we were invited to have dialogue with these, good Israelis. And both out of solidarity and my own understanding of genocide as large-scale, premeditated destruction of a people, either in whole or in part, happening concurrently, I stayed with them on the bus. The rest of the delegation went to have a dialogue. The reason I refused to have a dialogue with the institutions or members of society that have crossed the line of destroying a people from the very foundation, physical, spiritual, educational, health, food systems, everything. It's simple. Once a society, once a political state, once a political regime reach a point of unleashing the genocidal destruction in the manner that is most unconcealed, most sadistic, in the way Israel has been doing for the last 2 years, is simple. You cannot dialogue and come to an agreement with your genocidal killer. It will be like having a cup of tea with... It would be like having a cup of tea with a bunch of SS officers at Auschwitz before you were marched to the gas chambers. I've been to Auschwitz 4 times. I made a film about it for the Burmese activists to educate what could happen once a society allows itself to be primed to go along with the political genocidal program of a political regime. Yeah? So it's not, what is happening in Israel is not just about Smotrich or Van Gvir or Netanyahu or any political regime. This is the state that was conceived from the get-go genocidal. Munta Isaac, who we had a long conversation, said Israel is a terrorist state, a settler colony, built on genocide and terrorism. So we cannot have a dialogue with a genocidal state or society for that matter. Hear me out. You've all heard of, if not read, Mein Kampf by Hitler, 1925, the first publication. He wrote it in jail when he failed the first coup to take over Germany in 1923. A few months ago, about 40 former heads of security agencies, including Shabak or Shin Bet, Internal Security Agency, and IDF commanders, they got together, and one of them, Moshe Yalon, who held the defense minister's portfolio, former general, chief of staff of the Israeli army, IDF, said these words. Israel is pursuing, in quotes, these are his words, not mine, Mein Kampf in reverse. Today, it's no longer perverse, let alone criminal, to compare Israel to Nazi Germany of 1940. It's not an expression of fear and loathing of the Jewish people to say that Israeli society has already in that space of Nazi-like mental state. With that kind of state, dialogue is not possible. And so therefore, I think the call for military intervention, everyone agrees that Israel needs to be stopped. But as you know, the United States voted for this veto for the 6th time on Friday or last week. Even the most watered-down resolution calling for ceasefire, not to end of the genocide, much less the end of the occupation. With this kind of entity, people are prepared to call Israel genocidal state. The regime there, fascist, messianic, all kinds of things, right? But that's only 50%. We cannot accuse a state credibly of being genocidal, acting like Nazis, and far worse because they are more sadistic, unconcealed. Auschwitz was set up with 5% of the documentation that was left undestroyed by the SS before the Soviet army moved in on the 27th of January 1945. They attempted to destroy the evidence. They knew what they were doing was wrong. Whereas in fact, Israeli today, IDF, they were live streaming. They were, bragging. They were boasting what they have done. There's another 50% that we need to say it out loud and openly. It is morally imperative, and it's also strategically necessary to call for the dismantling of Israel as an apartheid genocidal state. Finally, genocides are no conflict. Genocides are no wars. There is no conflict between Palestinian people of different faiths and the Jewish people. Genocide happening today is a one-sided attempt to exterminate the people for want of their land. Therefore, I call for dismantling Israel as apartheid state in exchange for peace and security of Israeli people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother Maung, Zarni, well spoken there. You get the gist, everybody. Yes, we will have question and answers at the end. One more time, make some noise for Mr. Maung Zarni. Well done. Our Bernese brother, well put. Now, everybody, take a bit of a break, 15-minute, 10-minute break, please. And like I said, toilets are at the back. If you come out of here, you go to Clifton Road. There's a side road here. So out of the gates, left again if you want to go and pray. Teas and coffees in the other room, please, yeah? Help yourself, see in a bit. Thank you again.
Just want to also encourage everyone really to stay to the very end because Omer Hussein, who is going to be our last speaker, is a Palestinian who has been calling for military intervention since a very long time. We put him at the end because he is, in my view, the most important person, and others, all of us saying the same thing, but as a Palestinian, you must hear from him, so please do stay till the end.
Settle in, everybody. Settle in. Take your seats, please. Now, just a little bit of an announcement. These events, everybody, they don't just get put together. These events cost a lot of marketing, leafleting, posting done as well. A lot of time goes into this. If you want to help donate towards tonight's event, Activist Independent Movement, there's a QR code here at the front of the desk. I'll put it at the back there as well. There's a bucket there. You can make your donations. On another table, there's a small QR code like this. And I'm just going to hand this. There's just a bucket there on that table there. There's also a lovely lady at the back. She's going to get some details to me as well. She's also selling some artwork as well. And I hope everyone was managed to get some information. Now, moving forward now. You've seen what the gentleman previously and the sister spoke as well about military intervention. We're going to go more into detail into that as well. We still got Brother Franck Magennis to go, yeah. Brother Damon, Minchella, Shazia, Akhtar as well. And Shaykh Asrar, inshallah, he will be coming down as well. And we also got, like our brother mentioned, the Palestinian brother, Omer Hussein. So give some shout out for the speakers that are coming up and make some noise for our Palestinian brothers and sisters that are sitting at the table here. It's very important to have Palestinian representation. At any event, it is important that Palestinian activists, anyone to do with this movement, are given a platform. Those who don't give a platform to them, shame on them, because nothing can happen a free Palestine without our Palestinian brothers and sisters. So ultimately, it's their decision. We will do what we can do, but ultimately, it's their decision. Okay? So one state Palestine, and military intervention now. I want you to make some noise for Brother Damon. Minchella is going to start introduce himself as well. He's going to tell you what his background is and also what his speech is going to be about. So make some noise for Damon Minchella.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad I've gone on after the break, after those incredible, impassioned and knowledgeable things, because I actually feel I'm slightly out of my depth here because I'm just a musician. But Okay, a great one, thank you. But I've got a little thing here, which is what I do for my day job, and it says Oasis Tour Live 25, which I'm currently on at the minute, and out 400 passes, I'm number 15. So obviously it means I'm more important than number 16, but not as important as number 14. But what's incredible at my day job as a musician, on this tour I'm playing to 2 million people in the UK, and I have to wear this to go in. Okay. Now, this doesn't offend any of you if I was wearing this now, would it? It just says Oasis Live 25. I cannot wear my watermelon hoodie at the gig. Yeah, exactly. There is a blanket ban from the management and the promoters. You are not allowed any flags. Exactly, any flags. Now, the reason why they say any flags is so there's nothing to do with Palestine. Because there's 2 million people, and we don't want to ruin their fun. 2 million people have spent £165 each to watch some music. Brilliant, they're having a great time. But imagine if those 2 million people all said, military intervention now. Imagine the power of that voice if they used it. And a little story to illustrate how we could use those voices. I've got 2 stories to tell. And I want you to decide which one first. One is about a very short man, and the other one is about taxes. So what do you want first, the short man or taxes? Put your hands up if you want taxes first. Okay. Put your hands up if you want the short man story first. Okay, I thought so. Okay. There's a very short man who died 204 years ago. Okay. While he was alive, he invented the ambulance. What a great invention. Now, when I'm on my deathbed, if I'm able to say to I've got 5 children, so probably 87 grandchildren, what did you do, Grandad? I invented the ambulance. I would be very, very pleased, because it's a brilliant invention. Okay, but this guy didn't stop there. He also invented the metric system, because this was a few hundred years ago, and he was confused by all these different weights and measures. What's this ton? Why is it different from that ton? What's a furlong? What's an inch? What are all these things? I've got a great idea. And bear in mind, he was a short man. So he measured from his foot to where his heart is and called it a metier, or a measure. And that became the meter. And he was like, okay, that's good. I said he was a short guy. Okay, so literally 3 foot from his toe to his heart. He said, right, I live in this country. I want to see how many meters it would take to get from the top to the bottom. But that's going to be a lot. So why don't we put 1,000 meters into a kilometer and measure the country, and then we can make 100 centimeters into a meter. And he invented the metric system. So he's invented an ambulance and the metric system. You'd stop there and tell your great-grandchildren, I did a good thing, okay? But he not only did that, he invented the idea of a single currency, which we now see in the EU. Because was all these black market trade about swapping Swiss francs for Italian ducats and all this. He's like, let's get one currency. So he's done 3 amazing things. His archaeologists also found this stone in Egypt called the Rosetta Stone, so people could understand by translating the Greek via another language to what the pharaohic symbols meant. Okay, wow, what a dude. This is a lot of good work. Okay. He then became a massive dictator because he became the emperor of France. This is a guy called Napoleon, by the way. But this was a guy, I said he was short, but he'd done a lot of good things. Power corrupted him. But he came from a revolution. He grew up in a revolution where the bloated, hideous French royal family were ousted by the general public. Now, he knew this when he became this general, and he was fighting wars for the French independent country against the weight of the Russian Empire, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, the British Empire, the Prussian Empire, which is the Germans, the Swedish, etc., etc. He could defeat every army on the battlefield. He once fought a battle where he fought 5 different countries with his own one army. And I said he went on to become a hideous dictator because power corrupts absolutely, and he started to go insane and had health issues and became an even worse human being. But the one thing he was scared of was not the massive Russian army, the Austrian-Hungarian army, the British army, all these armies. What do you think it was? It was the people back in France. Because he knew if they united, as he'd already seen when he came to power, they would take it all away from him immediately. Not the weight of this institution, that institution, but his own people, if they banded together and used their one voice. Because that is what power is. It's a contradiction. It comes from the works of Antonio Gramsci, and as an Italian descendant, when my family left, they walked from southern Italy to northern Italy with just some stuff in a cart to get on a boat because of the fascists. My grandfather told my dad about the teachings of Antonio Gramsci, who came up with the concept of hegemony, which Noam Chomsky then took on. Is that we submit as the multitude to the power of the few because we think we can't do anything about it. But the reality is we can, which then brings me on to the second fun subject, which is taxes. Now, we all love paying our taxes, don't we? No? Oh, get out. Come on. Now, in a true working democracy, the 31st of January, when I have to go, oh, no, that's horrendous. We should celebrate it. Because in a true democracy, what we've done on the build-up to the paying this money is because we're paying for the privilege to put in place all these wonderful things we've voted for. So you look at your political parties, they've got a manifesto that says, we're going to give 27% of all of our tax money to the National Health Service. And you go, well, the other party said 5%, so I'm going to vote for them. Or we're going to do all this money to try and help climate change, etc., etc. Okay? So when it comes to tax day, we should all be going, yes, we get to contribute to these wonderful things that are going to change society. But we don't, do we? Because we know that the money's not going to go the way we wanted it to, because you know you got lied to. You know that manifesto was just a load of, may I say bullshit? A load of fucking bullshit, just to get you to vote for them, because they then change it. And what do we do on the 31st of January? We pay our taxes, because as an individual, we can't do anything. So if I decide not to pay my tax, I'm going to get a knock at the door. And they say, you must pay your tax, Dr. Minchella. Well, I'm not going to, because you lied to me. I'm not going to pay taxes because you're going to spend it on arms. You're going to privatise the NHS. You can do all the wrong things. I'm not going to pay. Okay, well, we're going to make you bankrupt, repossess your house, and if you still don't pay your tax next year, you're going to prison. So what do? Suck it up and pay your taxes. Now, imagine if 2 million people, every single person at those Oasis concerts said, no, I agree with Damon. I'm not going to pay my taxes. What's the government going to do? Nothing, because they can't. There's not enough of them, which is where the contradiction of power comes. If the general public, all of us here are in agreement, Imagine if those 2 million Oasis fans are in agreement, and it rolls on and on and on. If everyone stands together and says, we've had enough, military intervention now, or we're going to pull and break it all down. That's when we change it. Thank you.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. He never told you he's also father of 5 as well. And with everything that he's doing, MashaAllah, yeah. Now, we also got, make some noise again for Damon, Minchella, everybody, come on. One more time. Now, we're going to go to our next speaker, a sister by the name of Shazia Akhtar. She's a coordinator for the Ummah Action for Gaza, a coalition which was established earlier this year, bringing together Muslim community groups and activists who call for the mobilization of the Muslim world for decisive intervention to stop the genocide. The coalition has organized a number of protests and meetings to raise awareness about the need for military intervention by the armies in the region. Now, everybody, make some noise for Shazia Akhtar, all the way from London. Free, free, Palestine! Free, free, Palestine! Free, free, Palestine! What are we going to do? Smash Zionism. Smash! Zionism! Smash. When I say smash, you say Zionism. Smash! Zionism! Smash! Zionism! Smash! Zionism! Smash! Zionism! Smash! Zionism! What we want? One state Palestine. 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 Oh, this year, Shazia Akhtar.
Good evening and Assalamu alaikum. So the question we're dealing with right now is, how do you stop this genocide? Yeah, that's the question we've all come to sort of explore here this evening. And I won't repeat how we all know that the Zionist entity is inherently a genocidal entity. It was founded upon an ideology which is supremacist, racist, ethno-nationalist, and right from its very conception, it envisioned a Palestine without Palestinians. So that means it's woven into the DNA, this ethnic cleansing that we're seeing today. It's not something that's starting October the 7th, as we know, and it's been discussed earlier this evening. And we need to bear that in mind when we're speaking about how we're going to deal with the genocide. Because as we know, there has been unprecedented support on the streets of cities all over the world. We've never seen anything like it. It's been amazing, the solidarity that we've seen. We've seen the BDS movement never be so strong as it is today. But the slaughter continues. It's actually got worse. So why is that? It's because we haven't worked out, we have, which is great, us here today, most people haven't worked out that you can't stop a belligerent, rogue entity from realizing its goals with these actions alone. We know that this entity has F-16 fighter jets, 2,000-pound bombs, artillery strikes, predatory armed drones, armored tankers, incendiary bombs with white phosphorus, creating huge fire belts. So how do you confront all of this? You need a military force. And you need a force that is committed to taking on the Zionist killing machine. Now, the big question to this that we need to explore, and I'm going to do that quite differently tonight, is who is going to fill that role? And I want to say something that might be seen as controversial by some still, I hope it isn't, but there is absolutely no role for some sort of UN-backed international force in Gaza. There's a reason I say that. Yeah, because the origin, the structure, the organization, and the track record of the United Nations clearly points to the fact that it is part of the problem and not the solution. Yes, agreed? Good. And Gaza does not need another force which can serve as a means to further entrench Western control and hegemony in the region. We've learned from previous interventions in the Middle East and Africa that mandates of such international forces, and I'll say international in quotation marks, are shaped less by humanitarian principles and more by the strategic, political, and economic interests of powerful states who dominate policy in the region. Right. So what is needed is a regional solution, led by the people of the region themselves. One which frees that region from Western dominance and Western colonialism And I want to touch on 3 things, 3 points, very briefly. I'll try to stay within my time, that speak to the importance of us turning our attention, as those who are involved in activism for Palestine, turning our attention to the Middle East, or West Asia, the Muslim world. Call it what you want. But this is the direction we need to look in when we start to discuss the need for military intervention. So the first point I want to make is that this is a region which was actually prepared, deliberately reconfigured and restructured by colonial powers in such a manner that the existence, the consolidation, and the expansion of the Zionist entity has depended upon it. And we need to really reflect upon that point. This region was reorganized to welcome and to ensure the continuity of this Zionist entity. And the countries we see today, whether that's in the Levant, Palestine, historic Palestine, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, or further out, when we look to North Africa, we look to Egypt, these countries are a colonial invention. It is important that we understand that the formation of nation states in the Muslim world and in Africa, in this region, did not follow the same trajectory as European states. We need to acknowledge that. There is a history behind this. These states were actually carved out of what was previously a contiguous bloc, a bloc where people were interconnected for centuries through common cultures and governance based on Islam. This is the history of that region. These countries didn't exist. The borders that we see today on the maps were actually literally drawn by the British and the French after World War I. So we cannot view this region from a Eurocentric perspective through the lens that has been defined and shaped by colonialism. And those lines were quite literally drawn. Who knows about Sykes-Picot? Who's heard about Sykes-Picot? Can I have a show of hands? Right, we need more people to know about this. That's actually not enough hands. Sorry to those who didn't raise your hands. Right, this is integral to going forward. Because those lines were drawn by the French and British, literally, so the borders you see today, even the border around historic Palestine, again, some controversy, that border, the dagger shape, that was created during the British Mandate. Because we're talking about a bloc. We're talking about the creation of Jordan as an invented state. A border drawn in and that land carved up to create another state that would serve at the time British interests. So what's the impact and the implications of all of this on the issue that we're speaking about today, military intervention? Well, we need to bear this all in mind because that colonial fragmentation of the region into nation states over time has created an entire infrastructure that safeguards the continuity of the Zionist entity. First it was the British, the French, and now the United States. So we have to consider what that means when we talk about military intervention and what role we can play in taking this message forward. So if you look, for example, just a quick example, look at the south of this entity. You have Egypt. We all know about Rafah, yeah? We hear about Rafah often because of the siege and that being the point of entry from Egypt. Well, Egypt is bound to a treaty called the Camp David Treaty, which was agreed upon in 1979, and that treaty ties Egypt's military, its security, its economy to US policy in the region, and ultimately that means Israel's security. Egypt rakes in $1.3 billion a year, so it's second after Israel as the largest donor of American aid. And that is a trade-off where Egypt has given up a lot of its sovereignty. It's allowed a military multinational force called the MFO to be deployed in the Sinai desert, and that ensures demilitarization of the desert, so you don't even allow the forces to build up, which is slightly changing in the last 24 hours, something to look into. And so when we speak about military intervention, we need to know who's actually there on the ground, who's calling the shots. Similarly, this regional infrastructure ensures Israel's eastern flank is protected by Jordan, who can thwart any risks that may come from the Jordan Valley and prevent any resistance from the West Bank, emerging from the West Bank, which we see all the time with the raids, and just a few days ago, the 1,500 men who were taken from their homes and detained in Tulkarem in the West Bank. This happens with the complicity and involvement of Jordan. And Jordan too is rewarded with $1.6 billion a year in economic and military aid. So this infrastructure has to be addressed in order to confront the Zionist entity militarily. We have to start talking about it. It has to become part of our work and our activism. We have to absorb this in our activism. We have to start speaking about how is it that the region has close to 1 million, a million soldiers, active soldiers, and many more reserve soldiers they can call up. Where are they? Why aren't they being utilized? So military intervention has a reality in that region, but something is blocking it. And these soldiers have the necessary training and the ordnance. These regimes spend billions on military ordnance, on equipment, every year. This needs to be utilized, but why isn't it utilized? And that brings me really to a second point, which is that the call for military intervention has to be focused on this region, because the reality is there are over 200 million Muslims in the Levant. And that's a significant point because they are connected to Palestine, religiously, culturally, historically, geopolitically. And we have to take this into account when we're speaking about creating change, the demographics and the history of that region. And that's just the Levant. If we go beyond that and look at the Gulf, there's another 60 million and then more. And there are numerous surveys that have been conducted that highlight that the opinion on the Arab street is not in agreement with that of the client regimes, that there is not an appetite on the street. There is no appetite for normalization. You'd be surprised at some surveys have highlighted as little as 13% of populations from a number of countries in the region only 13% support any kind of normalization. They understand their governments have sold out. But we know that these governments are repressive as well. So when people come out to protest, they do get arrested, they get detained. Hundreds of people have been arrested and detained in Egypt and Jordan since October 2023 for speaking out and protesting. And we know, all of us who are following on this genocide on social media, we know that when we hear the people of Gaza call out, there is a recurring message that occurs. Sometimes we see the subtitles, yeah? And that recurring sort of questioning is, where are the Arabs? Where are the Muslims? You abandoned us. And there's a reason for that. It's not because they don't believe anyone else has any humanity. You're all here today. There are many, many non-Muslims here today. Most of the people who march at the national marches are not from the Muslim community. But the reason they do call out in that way is because there is a very fundamental Islamic concept which is unique to the Muslims in terms of their affinity for one another, and that's the Ummah. You may have heard of that word. And that is like an institution. It's a single body. It's often likened to a single body as an analogy. And belonging to that comes with obligations. And they're very aware of those obligations. So in those messages, they're reminding us, and they're reminding the region that you haven't done what you needed to do. And you need to wake up, you need to move. And they feel incredibly let down. I know many of us may be in touch with people from Gaza. I am, on a daily basis. And they do feel utterly abandoned by the people of that region. But it's not so much the people as it is the regimes. So to speak about military intervention, we need to start speaking about the need for people in that region to remove the colonial infrastructure which protects Israel, that protects it from facing military intervention from Muslim armies in the area. And there are millions of soldiers ready to fight if that order was given. We need to find a way, us, people who speak out for Palestine, we need to find a way to support this region to mobilize. And that might sound difficult, or that might sound unrealistic, but we should be concerned with our efforts and how much we can project our voice at a time when we have access to so many platforms, as opposed to the result. All change starts somewhere, as we've spoken about today. And as people, and especially this is a message to those in the Muslim community, we are obligated to speak the truth. So we need to do that. We need to be able to direct this call for military intervention to this huge, significant bloc, to move them to adopt the call for themselves to the point that we recognize, and we can see on social media, even in the news, that we're going to see that the call has become inescapable in those societies because they have militaries that can be used and must be used. Very quickly and lastly, I have a message for the Muslims in the audience and those who are listening in, that we have to remember as Muslims, this is fard. That means it's an obligation. We are obligated to support military intervention. And from my work in the community, I can see that there is too much self-censorship and fear about this issue. I have visited many imams, speakers, community leaders. They know this, but they're scared to speak about it. They're much happier getting behind the mainstream activism because it's more acceptable. But that's not going to change anything. We've established that this evening. So I say to the Muslim audience who is listening now, remember the ayah in Surah Al-Nisa, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us and says, you know, what is the matter with you when you do not fight in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When you do not fight for the oppressed men, women and children who cry out, our Lord, deliver us from this land of oppressors, appoint for us a savior, appoint for us a helper by your grace. And that ayah in Surah An-Nisa was revealed in relation to those who were left behind in Makkah and could not migrate to Medina and were still exposed to the persecution in Makkah. And this was then revealed. But it is applicable throughout time up until today, and it could be describing the situation in Gaza now, that people are calling out, where is the help? Where is the help? So I say to the Muslims who are listening, it's not a choice. This is an obligation. We need to start speaking about it. We need to start calling for it. And I say to everybody else who's here and is not from any particular faith, you know, we recognize this needs to be done. We need to speak more about what the messaging is and how we get it out there and take that messaging to where it needs to be reached. Thank you very much for listening.
Come on, another round of applause for Shazia Akhtar, mashallah, wonderful speech, brilliant speech. Come on, louder. I can't hear you. Come on. You know, what she said makes sense, you know, especially for our Muslim community, brothers and sisters. You know, that's a message out for you, you know, because you got to lead from the front, you know, and especially uncles and aunties that are here, brothers and sisters here, you might not be able to go to some of the protests. Now, action for Palestine, we can do it in different ways. You can help with the boycott. Then there's two things our community does. Weddings, they love them. And then we have our own matams, when you have your khatams. Now, if any khatam you're invited to, or if you're invited to any of the weddings, if they got Nestle water, remember this is not Nestle water by the way, yeah? But if he's got Nestle water on the table, yeah? If he's got Coca-Cola, Pepsi, any of the boycott drinks, sorry to say, look, you support Palestine genuinely, get up and leave. Say your dua, yeah? Pay your condolences, pay your respects, and say, look, it's not for me. Because when you start taking action like that, it will get into people's common sense to say that people are boycotting the Khatam because they are not supporting Palestine. They got Nestle water, Coca-Cola. We can live without those things. Same with the weddings. I don't attend any weddings or anything like that. If there's any Coca-Cola or anything like that, I'll get up and say, no, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Where's my Nindra? I'll give my Nindra and go. Those are big actions you can take and knock some sense into our community. Because we're still supporting Coca-Cola, we're still supporting Pepsi, we're still buying those drinks. You need to stop shopping. Like I said, Lidl, there's an alternative. Go to Aldi's, make those sacrifices. Now we've got Brother Franck Magennis here. Make some noise for Brother Franck Magennis. Now, this brother is also a barrister. You know, he does civil and criminal cases as well. And at the end of the day, this brother's also been involved with the unions, you know, with the, what's it called? 1 second. Yeah, UVW. You know, he's been part of them as well. So he's not just a barrister, he's been also been involved in the unions. So he knows what he's talking about, the legalities. He's going to come and introduce himself a bit more. So make some noise for Franck Magennis.
Thank you. Everyone, comrades, brothers and sisters, it's great to be here. My name's Franck. I am a communist, an anti-Zionist, and I also practice as a lawyer out of London. I feel a bit exhausted, I'm sure a lot of us do. I've been trying to work quite hard to do what I can to resist the Zionist genocide, but it is taking its toll, and I just want to admit that. I feel a bit exhausted, and at times I also feel a bit powerless, which is a horrible feeling. I feel like I'm choking on my rage. But I think that hope is something that we cultivate collectively, and it's very emboldening and hopeful to be in this space with all of you. And I really hope that we can do the difficult work of thinking through what Ousman's provocation is asking of us, right? What does it mean for us to think about militarily intervening to stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters and comrades in Palestine? I was going to talk to you tonight about three things, but I should start by saying that as a communist, as a Marxist, I come from a tradition where we engage in what Karl Marx once described as the ruthless criticism of all that exists, right? So I think if we're to actually succeed in achieving the kind of military success that crushes Zionism once and for all, we have to ruthlessly criticize this project. We have to think critically about it, right? We have to constructively interrogate it. So that's what I'm inviting us all to do here, is to ask the difficult questions about what it would actually mean to militarily intervene in solidarity with the Palestinians with a view to systematically dismantling the apartheid state of Israel, okay? So that's my framing, right? It's a critical framing. I discussed it with Ousman in advance, and he's happy for me to critically interrogate his bold provocation, all right? The three things I was going to talk to you about were, firstly, I was going to look at some historical examples, all right? I'm not a historian, but I just think we might learn something if we think about other examples where military intervention has or hasn't happened in the context of national liberation struggles like the struggle of the Palestinians. The second thing I was going to talk about was the existing situation on the ground in Palestine these last few years, because military intervention is already happening there. And the third thing I was going to end on talking about some observations that follow from that historical and contemporary analysis, and try and think in particular about what we can do, right? What we in this room can do. And it's very important to me that we should all leave this room feeling more powerful than when we entered it, and that we all leave it buzzing with an idea of, okay, what can I do to escalate my opposition to this genocide? And in particular, what can I do to critically interrogate, critically support the suggestion that Zionism will be defeated on the battlefield, right? So those are the three things I'm going to discuss, yeah? The first, then, some historical examples. I was thinking on the way up here, which examples from history are most helpful as we attempt to think about what a successful military intervention looks like. And I think what's underreported, perhaps, or underappreciated in a country like Britain is the case of Angola, right? So Angola is sort of two countries above apartheid South Africa, as it then was, right? And in between them you have what's now Namibia, but at the time it was called Southwest Africa, okay? So you have an apartheid state, not dissimilar to the apartheid state of Israel, differences and similarities, and it's engaged in quite an aggressive war against Angola. And what the Cubans did was to send tens of thousands of troops to assist their brothers and sisters in Angola. And that was a relatively decisive intervention, all right? So I'm encouraging us to think through, like, what is the equivalent of the Cuba today? What would it mean for a state to be so committed to solidarity that they would have the power to be able to actually send troops? Another historical example that I wanted us to dwell on was the Spanish Civil War. A lot of people in a country like Britain, a lot of people in Ireland, the Western European radical left is very fond of talking about the international brigades, right? So for those who don't know, the Spanish Civil War was between 1936 and 1939, and it's often treated as a kind of prelude to the so-called Second World War, which was ultimately this staggering fight against Nazism, right, against fascism. And of course, World War II was ultimately one at the expense of tens of millions of Soviet lives, more than anything else, right? Ernest Hemingway said, humanity owes a debt to the Red Army that can never be repaid. But the Spanish Civil War is like this precursor. So the fascist right, the Nazis in Germany, Mussolini's Italy, are funding the Republicans, and the nationalists, I should say, and the Republicans are the forces of the left, backed up mostly covertly by the Soviet Union. And crucially, in countries like Britain, Ireland, France, those governments maintained a position of official non-intervention. But ordinary people defied their governments and went to fight in the international brigades and went to fight against the fascists in Spain. The reason I mention that example is because even though we're fond, and we should remember the sacrifice of those people who went to fight in solidarity with the Spanish people to try and stem the rising fascist tide, but we lost. We lost the Spanish Civil War, and it's really important for us to remember that. Franco was the Spanish fascist. He stayed in power until his death in 1975, okay? So my provocation here is that we can't uncritically valorize international actions without understanding that sometimes it's not enough, right? So dwelling on our defeats as well as our victories is important, right? The second thing I was going to talk about briefly was the fact that, well, I suppose dwelling on the historical examples, another one that's worth, a very depressing example is that of Rwanda, right? Rwanda in 1994 was a genocide that was very obviously happening. Everyone could see that a genocide was taking place. And it's an example of where Western powers, and in particular the United States, refused to use the word genocide, just like today, and refused to intervene, even though they had the power to intervene to stop the genocide, right? So that's an example where in some ways there was no international intervention, right? Eventually the French came in what was called Operation Turquoise, I think, and finally brought it to an end, but not before hundreds of thousands of Tutsi had been brutally murdered, right? So that's an example of where no international intervention took place and the Holocaust of Rwandans took place. That brings us to the Holocaust that we're witnessing in Gaza today. And there has already been considerable military intervention. So on the anti-Zionist side, we have the incredible people of Yemen who have done more than almost anyone. At great cost to themselves, have opened up a front in the war against the Zionist entity. And it's of course, the war in Yemen didn't start in 2023 on October 7th, right? Saudi Arabia, with the backing of the West and Britain in particular, has been attempting to crush the Ansar Allah in Yemen for really quite a long time now, right? More than a decade. And it's also the case that Hezbollah, in the wake of October 7th, immediately started to resume armed attacks against the Zionist entity. And of course, Iran, I think we all saw those Iranian ballistic missiles slamming into Israeli cities. And I think that it's really worth dwelling on what's happening with that Iranian military intervention and what's happening there. It's quite a complex a geopolitical situation there. And in particular, some of you will have noticed that these snapback sanctions were supposed to kick in, and Western European powers and America are saying that the sanctions need to be reimposed on Iran. And crucially, Russia and China are refusing, and they say that the snapback should not come into effect, and they're continuing to trade with Iran. So the geopolitical situation is extremely volatile right now. I think we all know that. And then on the pro-Zionist side, the most obvious military intervention is from the US. I am absolutely clear. I agree with Palestinian intellectuals like Rafif Ziada, Adam Haniya, as well as non-Palestinian intellectuals like Andreas Malm and Rob Knox. I think this lobby theory it's important for us to interrogate that, right? I don't think it's the case that Israel controls the United States. I think it's the other way around. It's dialectical, as we say on the Marxist left, but Nasrallah was clear about this, right? Nasrallah, the former leader of Hezbollah, was clear that the Zionist entity is allowed to continue existing because the United States and its allies in NATO allow it to exist, and it would collapse tomorrow were it not for the staunch support of the United States. So this genocide is the United States genocide, and it's also the case that Britain is actively militarily intervening. So there is already a military intervention in Palestine. It's just taking place on the wrong side, right? So our government is currently participating in this genocide, and there was a communist called Karl Liebknecht who said in 1915, the real enemy is at home. And I would encourage us, all of us in this country, in this room, to think about what it means for us to disrupt our existing government's participation in this genocide, all right? It's all well and good thinking internationally, and I'm grateful to Ousman for provoking this conversation. Let's think internationally about what it means for greater military intervention in solidarity with Palestinians. But when it comes to thinking about military intervention in Britain, our main task is to think about how we escalate our opposition to our government's own participation in this genocide. So the third thing I said I'd talk about was a few observations, all right? I don't want to take up too much time. There are some brilliant speakers still to come. I suppose the main thing that I wanted to say was that I think we're witnessing the emergence of contemporary 21st century fascism, and we're also witnessing a crisis of US global hegemony, right? So if anyone was in any doubt, I don't think there is any room for any doubt anymore that Zionism is a fascist ideology, or if people disagree with that, it has certainly degraded into its fascist phase. So Zionism is unanswerably fascist. The Zionist entity is governed by literal fascists. They tell us that they're fascist. There is no longer any basis for doubting. So I think one of the things that we need to do is to find ways to normalize anti-Zionism, okay? That means politically, it means in our workplaces, it means wearing badges and pins and finding ways to express ourselves in our workplaces. And if we get fired for doing that, escalating, suing, publicizing the fact that anti-Zionism is normal, it should be considered as normal to oppose Zionism as it is to oppose racism and to oppose fascism, because Zionism is both of those things. And smash Zionism. Smash. So it's not just workplaces. I think we need to create sort of cultural spaces, right? Like there are more urgent political spaces where we need to advance anti-Zionist demands, but I also think cultural spaces are important. I think we should, and people are doing this, but we need to increase the normality with which we express anti-Zionist views. We should be having anti-Zionist film nights, anti-Zionist poetry readings, anti-Zionist chess club, like just everything. Like we should just normalize the idea that like anti-Zionism is normal now actually, and you're the weirdo if you think that Zionism is normal, right? Like it's akin to saying, I'm a fascist, right? So I was saying, I think that it's important to understand the crisis in Palestine as one symptom, one manifestation of the broader crisis of US global hegemony. You see it in Ukraine, and I think more than anything you see it in with China, okay? So that's what's so difficult about this provocation about military intervention, is that realistically the problem we face, those of us who support the idea, support the call for a military intervention in Palestine, our problem is that to pick a fight with the Zionist entity is in reality to pick a fight with the United States, right? And so it's the same as when Russia invaded Ukraine. It wasn't fighting Ukraine, it was fighting NATO. Everyone saw that, right? It's a proxy war. And whatever you think of that, it's a NATO-Russia proxy war, right? So you would be naive to think, oh, I'm just fighting Ukraine. It's like, no, you're fighting the United States, and we see that, right? Ukraine would have been crushed were it not for the support of its NATO allies. Ditto Taiwan, right? If China decides to try and retake Taiwan, it's not going to war on Taiwan, it's going to war on the United States, and we face the same problem with the Zionist entity. Like you saw that with the so-called 12-day war with Iran, the Zionist entity would have been crushed by those Iranian missiles were it not for the United States. I read somewhere that it was something like 80% of the missiles that were intercepted by the United States. Just imagine that. Imagine if those 80% of missiles had actually landed instead of being intercepted, right? So it's a crisis of US hegemony, and I think like so many imperial powers that enter into what seems like quite an existential crisis, they often reach for a fascist solution. So I'm not trying to be alarmist, it just seems to me that we are witnessing the first shots have already been fired, the first genocides are already being waged, like this is it, like this is not a drill, this is contemporary fascism, and so we all have to take seriously the question of what it means to collectively organize ourselves internationally as anti-fascists. The struggle, I suppose one way to put it is that Zionism is fascist, we are all anti-fascist, and so it follows that we're all anti-Zionist. It's like I said, I think critical support for the call for an intervention, for a military intervention, but in a country like Britain, that mostly means not calling for Britain to somehow intervene on the side of Palestine, but mainly it means escalating our opposition to this government's participation in the genocide. It's military intervention on the side of the Zionist fascists, and in particular, and I don't have easy answers for you, and I said I'm exhausted, and I'm just some guy, right? We're trying to think this through together, but I'm encouraging us to think critically, and at the risk of stating the obvious, and I'm sure a lot of you will support this, but I think it's important that we clearly articulate the demand to destroy the Labour Party. We need to eviscerate that institution for its role in this crisis. It needs to be completely wiped out. It must not be allowed to survive. We need to target its most senior ministers, Keir Starmer, Wes Streeting, Yvette Cooper, all of these people who presided over this genocide. We need to target them in the next general election and just completely obliterate that party for a number of reasons over its 100 years of existence. That party should never exist. Should never existed. It's just that party is the enemy of the international working class. It doesn't even claim to be a socialist organization. I think Lenin said it best. We should support the Labour Party the way that the rope supports the hanged man. I hope that that's been a useful provocation. I'm grateful to Ousman for creating this space, and I'm grateful to all of you for sharing it with us. Let's go away from this space thinking, how do we urgently escalate our opposition to the Zionist entity? And what does it mean for us to really think through critically this demand for a military intervention, because Zionism will ultimately be defeated on the battlefield. Thanks so much.
Free, free, Palestine! Free, free, Palestine! Free, free, Palestine! Smash, 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 smash. Give a round of applause to Brother Franck Magennis. Now you see the legalities here. That's why we got barristers up here as well to try to explain to you, don't be frightened, people. The legal precedent has been set. The military intervention campaign has started. The one state Palestine campaign has started. Let's get behind those campaigns. We're going to have more speakers to come yet. We got Brother Omer Hussein, the Palestinian speaker, to still go as well. We also have our very own, Shaykh Asrar, local scholar, national scholar, and international scholar. So make some noise for Shaykh Asrar as well, please, who's taken time to come to these events. Now, Sister Shah's coming again. You heard her lovely poetry. You know she's a Palestinian. She's briefly going to be speaking for a few minutes and say what she thinks about the military intervention. So make a round of applause for Shahd. Karaeen. Free, free. Free, free.
Assalamu alaikum and hello again. So every time I get invited to attend, I always think I need to make sure that whatever I say, my family back home will be safe. Really is important. Yes, I am here, I can share my thoughts, but thank you to everyone here for speaking on our behalf on things that I cannot really share freely because of my family back home. So, I am Shahd Karaeen, Palestinian artist, poet, and author. I'm not a politician, and I'm not here to give you a political speech. I'm here to speak as a Palestinian, as a human being, as a survivor, as an artist who refuses silence. My work carries survival, memory, and the fight for justice. I speak from a humanitarian place, so our voices are heard, even when the world tries to erase them. Gaza, Haifa, Jenin, Al-Khalil, Bethlehem, Ramallah. I stand for all my people, for every Palestinian, innocent children, mothers, fathers, the oppressed, the abused, the suffering, the survivors. I stand for women's rights, for human rights. I carry home wherever I go. To return physically, to see my family, for now, that is only a dream I can hold. And even that dream has put a label on my back, arrest her. Why? Because I dared to speak the truth. That Palestinians are human. That we deserve rights. That we deserve liberation. This is the truth, our reality. We are dehumanized. The world must see that our voices matter. My voice, your voice, their voices, all our voices matter. For me as a Palestinian, Palestine is one body. When Gaza bleeds, Al-Quds mourns. When Al-Quds is attacked, Gaza grieves. We are not separate. We are one. It's genocide, 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 genocide. Is not a slogan. It has faces, it has names, it has graves. It is slaughter. A game Zionists play without a shred of sympathy for our humanity. It is children who once wrote their names on their arms so they could be identified under rubble. Now even that is useless because the rubble is endless and the names no longer matter. It is mothers who once dug with their bare hands through collapsed homes to find their children. Now many no longer search because death feels more merciful than survival. It is fathers who carried their children in plastic bags because there were no coffins small enough. Now the bodies are too many to carry, they are everywhere. Nurses, doctors, teachers, students, artists, journalists wiped out. Dr. Adnan al-Bursh, Marwan al-Sultan, Anas al-Sharif, Muhammad Salame, Hussam al-Masri, Maryam Abu Da'a, Fatme Hassouna. Journalists, photographers, poets, silenced with their cameras, their notebooks, their voices. Teachers who once stood before classrooms. Students who once carried books instead of shrouds. Entire families erased, entire families erased from the civil registry. Their names deleted, not by time, not by history, but by bombs. This is what genocide looks like. And yet the world debates, the world negotiates, the world waits. Just today, Starmer finally recognized the state of Palestine. And yes, recognition matters. But does recognition mean we will finally have human rights? Does it mean the bombing will stop? Does it mean children will wake up tomorrow alive? Does it mean the refugees of the Nakba can finally return home? The millions displaced in camps, in exile, in waiting, will they now walk freely back to their villages, their land, their homes? Does it mean I can return to Jerusalem to see my family without a threat of arrest hanging over me, simply because I speak the truth as a Palestinian? Recognition matters, but it is not liberation, it is not justice. Because every hour of waiting is another innocent life lost. Every day of silence is another body left to rot. Zionist settlers occupy our homes and our lands, treating Palestinians, treating Arabs in the occupied territories as if we are disposable, as if our existence is an obstacle they are entitled to erase. They kick us out. They destroy, they take, and they take more, and it's never enough, as if it is owed to them without justice, without justification, without protection. Surrender is not a choice, it is forced by the hands that kill us. History will ask us all, what did we do while Gaza burned? And I want us to be able to answer. We did not stay silent. We did not look away. We chose courage. And to the Palestinian people at home, especially in Gaza, I say, we see you. We will not abandon you. Your names live in our voices, in our memories, in our breath. Palestine lives. Palestinians resist. We will find justice. We will find our freedom because of everyone's solidarity. Palestinians don't stop fighting for freedom. We only stop when we are killed. Thank you.
Free, 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 free. Now, marshallers, make some round for Sister Shahd, Karaeen, a passionate speech. Hear her words. You know, she's not just poetry, but what she says makes sense. And we need a free Palestine. And shame on the West that's taken them nearly 2 years to decide that there is a Palestine state, which has taken them over 70 years to recognize that. But they got there in the end, but we need more people to do this. We know that Canada, Australia, France and other countries are taking part, but what they need to do is, they need to recognize is not the two-state solution no more. What do we want? One state Palestine, come on. What do we want? One state Palestine. What do we want? One state Palestine. That's how have the negotiations are going to end. One state Palestine. No more two-state Palestine. Now, I'm going to introduce this brother to yourselves, yeah? Brother Omer, yeah, he's a Palestinian brother, but I like Brother Ousman Noor to introduce him and how they met, yeah? So make a round of applause for Brother Omer.
I just wanted to mention how Omer and I first met. Last June, I think, what month it was, we participated in the global march to Gaza from Egypt. There were hundreds, I think thousands of citizens from all over the world who decided to fly into Cairo with the intention that we would march through the Sinai Desert. We bought camping gear, we bought lots of food, we bought tents and caravans, and we met there, and only to be fragmented, decimated, detained by the Egyptian authorities, which Sister Shazia very rightfully pointed out, is entirely complicit in the US hegemony in the region and very quickly dispensed with our efforts. But what it did allow us to do was group together to meet and decide what we wanted to do to go forward. And I learned a lot about Omer's history in calling for military intervention. He is a son of a Nakba survivor. He is a Palestinian. His voice is crucial to this effort. And I'm so glad that you've come and joined us together. And afterwards, we're going to hear from Shaykh Asrar, an Islamic scholar. But please put your hands together for Brother Omer Hussein.
Thank you for that introduction, Othman. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening, everyone. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. I start with the prayer of the Prophet Moses. My Lord, uplift my heart for me and make my task easy and remove the impediment from my tongue so people may understand my speech. I am a Palestinian, a son of a Nakba survivor from 1948. I want to talk to you by being the bridge from Gaza, from Palestine, here to Birmingham today. So my family themselves have sacrificed at least 10 people in the resistance, and actually 4 of them have been killed in the genocide in the West Bank. Killed by the Israelis and even killed by the PA. As I said, my father was a Nakba survivor. He lived in 1948 and he saw the occupation firsthand. But what I really want to do is tell you what the people of Gaza are saying and thinking. Because my journey started about 25 years ago when I was at university. And within days of starting, Occupy Palestine would be the center stage in the world, in what would later be known as the Second Intifada, the uprising. It was a brutal campaign of terror launched by the Jewish entity against the indigenous Palestinians. Over 52 months, 3,000 Palestinians were murdered, including one of them was my cousin. This set the stage for my first public call for military intervention against the Israeli occupation. In the years that followed, and in particular, the brutal wars against Gaza from 2008 onwards, thousands of people were murdered. I was among the few who never wavered in calling for military intervention. The first live-stream genocide in history took the global masses on a crash course on the murderous foundations of the Zionist entity. Social media became the battlefield, where Zionist narratives were buried one after another. Terms and events like the Balfour Declaration, the Nakba, the Intifada became everyday language. People did a 180. They were no longer buying the propaganda of Israel that it has the right to defend itself, and instead were backing the right of the resistance to defend themselves and liberate Palestine. Gaza has been the exposer. Empty slogans of international law and human rights were laid bare. The UN, the ICC, the ICJ were used as a cover to distract us while the US and Israel perpetrated a Holocaust on Gaza. As US Senator Lindsey Graham confessed, the Rome Statute doesn't apply to Israel, or the United States, or France, or Germany, or Great Britain, because it wasn't conceived of to come after us. That's his own words. We in the West were facing the bitter truth that the global North was orchestrating this genocide. For the global South, and specifically the Muslim world, there were no shocks. This was the only truth we ever knew. Not only had the world presided over the occupation of Palestine in the first place, but in the last 3 decades in particular, we witnessed the Bosnian and Rwandan genocides take place under the watch of the UN. Millions were killed in Iraq and in Afghanistan in illegal wars, and civil war ravaged Syria and Yemen. The call on the streets of the Muslim world demanded an end to normalization, to cease trading with the occupation, and to end diplomatic relations. And the Muslim rulers, the regimes, they did respond. They responded by violently dispersing protesters, arresting them, and torturing them. Some thought that the first live-stream genocide would force the regimes to act, but instead they revealed themselves as not only neutral observers, but as active participants in genocide, offering words of condemnation while fueling and sustaining the genocidal machinery. None have been more critical of the Muslim rulers than the Gazans themselves, and I want you to pay attention to that. They've called out the betrayal in an endless stream of videos. In one video that really stands out to me, a young Gazan boy, young man, he looks at a pack of dogs and he says, "By Allah, you have more chivalry, dignity, and honor than the Arab rulers." That really sums up how the people of Gaza have concluded what the Muslim and Arab rulers are. Despite their total rejection of the Muslim regimes and rulers, the people of Gaza have not ceased in calling on the Muslim world. It is no exaggeration to say I could play you hundreds of videos from Gaza saying, "O nation of 2 billion, where are you?" Literally, I could find you hundreds. The real focus is on those with the means to act. In one extremely powerful video, a young medical professional in Gaza says in translation, "I hope this video reaches all the followers of the Islamic Ummah, the nation, the Muslim world. My message to them is clear and explicit, that you entered military college for one goal, which is to return the right of the oppressed to them, and to defend the weak and the oppressed. Therefore, the statement of this country and this continent and that continent are foundations of division between Muslims. Rather, Islam is one country. We are brothers and we are one hand. I hope that you understand my words well and defend the oppressed who are being exposed to this genocide every day. For Palestinians, this is not just a Palestinian issue. They speak of the Ummah and they also speak of humanity. But we must honor their words. The anger on the Arab street is palpable. In the past year, 2 operations were carried out against the occupation at the Karama crossing between Jordan and the occupation. And they were both by former Jordanian soldiers. And I want to add here, for those who try to sow division between Palestinians and Jordanians, they were both Jordanians from the Jordanian tribes. And one of them was actually just a few days ago. It is likely that many hundreds were thwarted by the Jordanian security services. And at the Rafah crossing, 2 serving Egyptian soldiers were martyred in a firefight with the occupiers. In the aftermath of their martyrdom, Middle East Eye published a report with the headline, "My blood will go in vain. Egyptian soldiers say their country has failed Gaza." Here are a few powerful quotes that capture their outrage. "It is painful to know that you can help, but you are shackled and cannot help rescue your people from being slaughtered." Your people. This is an Egyptian soldier talking. "We train day and night and repeat marching chants against the Zionist enemy. And we hear dedicated newsletters bragging about how ready the military is. But when this enemy is killing thousands of our brothers, we sit idle." And another, "If the government continues to be apathetic, the soldiers will not be able to restrain themselves from firing at the enemy, like the martyr Muhammad Salah." They're referencing a soldier, Egyptian soldier, who carried out an operation against the Israelis before the genocide where he killed 3 soldiers. Earlier this year, Jordanian protesters called on the army of Karama to respond to the genocide. This is an honorable name given to the Jordanian army for their famous victory under the command of General Mashhur Hadith al-Jazi against the Israelis in 1968, after he bravely broke the chain of command from King Hussein of Jordan. It is worth noting that the Jordanian intelligence arrested those who had led those chants. Even in the face of the Israeli occupation attacking 7 countries in the region, most recently Qatar and also the waters of Tunisia, the Arab and Muslim regimes responded with yet another summit and yet more empty words of condemnation. The current regimes in the region are part and parcel of the occupation. They are the real IDF. They are actually the IDF because the ones that they call the IDF are the IOF. They're the ones carrying out the genocide. But the ones protecting their backs are the IDF. They're the Arab regimes. They are the real Iron Dome. And I mean this literally. They will shoot down missiles and drones directed at the genocidal occupation. So how do we find ourselves in this sorry state of affairs? How is it possible that the Muslim world of 2 billion, that the people of Gaza call upon, are unable to respond? One that possesses not only military might, but is abundant in resources. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said, Spain, as you know, doesn't have nuclear bombs, aircraft carriers, or large oil reserves. Undoubtedly, it sent a subtle yet stinging message about the Muslim world's failure. It is a true indictment of the abandonment of Gaza, and it reminded me of a viral video that was viewed no less than 6.5 million times on Instagram, with the words, "It will be remembered that Pakistan was a nuclear power, yet it couldn't provide a single atomic bomb for Palestine. Egypt had the Nile River, but Gaza died of thirst. Saudi Arabia and the UAE had oceans of oil, but hospitals and ambulances in Gaza ran out of fuel. Muslims had more than 5 million soldiers, heavy artillery, missiles, fighter jets, but none could reach Gaza to provide aid." Last week, the Greek Orthodox Patriarch of Jerusalem gifted President Erdogan of Turkey a copy of the Omri Covenant. This is the covenant that was given by the second caliph of the Muslims, Umar al-Khattab, to the Christians of Jerusalem, giving them assurances that their churches, their religious practices, and their lives would be protected. It surely did not escape Erdogan that the Patriarch was delivering a deeply symbolic message, that you are bound to protect us as your forefathers once did. And I take you back to 1917, when Palestine was last defended against occupation, and that was the Ottoman defenders. The Ottomans held Gaza with courage for 7 months in 3 battles, but they were finally overrun in November 1917. And it should be noted that they were overrun in the 1st of November, and on the 2nd of November, the Balfour Declaration was made. At that time, 14% of Palestinians were Christian. So it just gives you some indication of what life existed for 4 centuries under Ottoman rule. Right from the outset of the occupation in 1948, the Arab armies were thwarted from acting. After their initial victory in Jenin in 1948, the Iraqi army sought to march on to liberate Haifa under the command of Omar Ali Akhtar, but they were prevented. And this story is very personal to me because when my dad was made a refugee from Qanir near Haifa, he lived under the Iraqi army for 2 years in Jenin. So he has a very soft spot for the Iraqi army living under their protection. The general famously wanted to liberate Haifa, but he was prevented from doing so. And women used to sing a song, Shlono Saleh Zaki, Maku Amr, what's wrong with you, Saleh Zaki? Why do you not give the order to fight? And Saleh Zaki was a commander in the Iraqi army. The pattern of betrayal was repeated several times, most notably in 1967 and in the 1973 wars. So when we call for military intervention, we are not jumping on a trend. This is and was the only response to the occupation. What was taken by force will only be returned by force. When we call for military intervention from the region, we must not be deluded into believing that the regimes will act. Our militaries have been commandeered by hostile forces from within, who are directed by foreign powers. The people are truly aware of this. In recent protests on the streets of Jordan, they shouted, "Forgive us, O people of Gaza, but we are also under siege." We are calling on the military to rise above the diktats of their regime and forge a new political reality. We must not underestimate our impact in calling for military intervention today. If it was not through our collective mobilization globally, we would not have been able to smash the Zionist narratives in the wake of the 7th of October and replace it with a global call for the liberation of Palestine. If you imagine we were silent at the time that the global media, the establishment media, the politicians were selling their narrative. If we were silent, they would have succeeded in pushing that narrative. But it was through our collective actions that we smashed that idea. Today I'm going to leave you with 4 action points. 1, direct your call to the Muslim militaries. Whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim, direct your call to the Muslim militaries. Consider any personal links you can leverage. Family, friends, acquaintances, anyone online. If you speak Arabic, Urdu and Turkish in particular, consider how you can seize this opportunity. They will undoubtedly be moved by the words in the Quran, وَمَا لَكُمْ لَا تُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ وَالنِّسَاءِ وَالْوِلْدَانِ الَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا أَخْرِجْنَا مِنْ هَذِهِ الْقَرْيَةِ الظَّالِمِ أَهْلِهَا وَاجْعَلْ لَنَا مِنْ لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا وَاجْعَلْ لَنَا مِنْ لَدُنْكَ نَصِيرًا. And what is it with you? And this is a verse that Sister Shazia mentioned, that you do not fight in the cause of Allah for oppressed men, women and children who cry out, O Lord, deliver us from this land of oppressors. Appoint for us a savior, appoint for us a helper, all by your grace. One of the things that Gaza has taught me is that we didn't know enough about the reality of Palestine. For example, I was totally unaware that there was 1,000 Christians in Gaza. I was totally unaware that there were 3 churches there. I was totally unaware that the 3rd oldest church in the world was in Gaza. Because if you were to believe the media reports, Hamas is killing all the Christians. But they were living, their churches were protected. But the Israeli entity, in the space of 2 years, have destroyed all those churches and have massacred the Christian population. Number 2, use social media to amplify this call. Make posts, create videos, write. But be sure to tag in the militaries. You can tag in their accounts on X, on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Do that. Believe me, it's effective. And I just want to give you some examples. I've been doing that right from the first 1 or 2 days of the genocide, by the way. And I had in one case tagged in the Pakistani military, the Turkish, the Egyptian, the Jordanian. And then a Malaysian soldier writes under my post, he comments, he goes, have you forgotten about the Malaysian army? And I thought, how sincere. This man, thousands of miles away, and he says, but I've got responsibility. And by the way, I've had interactions with Turkish, Jordanian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi military personnel, retired or serving. So don't believe the lie being told to you that they're all part of the regimes. Believe me, they feel the anger like we do. Number 3, reach out to journalists, scholars, imams, social media influencers, and ask them why they're not calling for the correct solution, and pressure them to do so. The time is for military intervention. No amount of boycotting, no amount of charity is going to stop this genocide. I'm not saying we shouldn't do those things, and I do those things myself, but you need to be calling for the right solution. It's like you've got a doctor who has a patient who's dying on their table, and he goes, don't worry, I'm going to give you some paracetamol and some painkillers. You're not dealing with the issue at hand. We're bleeding to death. And I'll give you one example of a journalist who did rise to that challenge recently. On a recent interview in Doha at the Arab Summit, Al Jazeera interviewer Osama bin Javid from Pakistan challenged the Deputy Prime Minister of Pakistan, Ishaq Dar, in response to the minister stating that he is a member of the Ummah. That means I'm a member of the Muslim community. And the journalist was very quick to say, you're not just an ordinary member of the Ummah, you are representing Pakistan. You are the top diplomat of the only nuclear-armed Muslim country. Putting him in his place. That's what we need our journalists to do, not allow these ridiculous statements from our politicians. Number 4, make your protests meaningful. Protest at embassies, call on the armies at the national demos. This creates a strong public opinion which resonates far beyond the Western capitals in which we do them. The tide is turning. Don't be fooled by their desperate distractions like today's colonial theater announcing a Palestinian state by the very same founders of the Jewish entity, especially as the genocide continues unabated. While they're funding and supporting a genocide, people are getting happy about them declaring a Palestinian state. Let's not be fooled anymore. The Zionist project has been fully exposed. The world order which shields it has lost all credibility. We must push on for military intervention and the full liberation of Palestine like never before. And I leave you with very powerful words from the hero, the martyr Anas al-Sharif, where he said, I entrust with you Palestine, the jewel in the crown of the Muslim world and the heartbeat of every free person in the world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Make some noise for the Omer Hussein. Come on, everyone, come on. That's a very, very, very deep speech. Many thanks to all the speakers who have spoken today. The heavy speeches have been heavy. There's a lot to take in. We will put some of the recordings out when they're ready. Okay, now, in the meantime, between time, I just want to quickly announce there are 20 buses, the legendary 1,000 Global March for Palestine, which follow them on www.gmfpalestine.com. There's another global march being planned where it's going to start from Manchester, come to Birmingham. It's going to be about 20 odd coaches or more. They're going to head through Europe and go through other places. I'm not going to go too much into details, but follow them, the Global March for Palestine. We're going to keep making this noise. We've got the flotilla. We've got activists, very own activists, independent movement, activists there as well. Please keep them in your prayers. It's very important. They're on a big mission to go down there. And you heard what the Zionists have said, that they're waiting for them and they will attack them. And just pray to Allah, please, that they keep them safe. And we need a military intervention. They need some military accompanying them to their mission. And now's the time forever to do this. So military intervention now. Yes? Yes? Smash? Smash! Smash! MashaAllah. You guys are up there still after all these hours. The coffee and the tea's kicking in. Now there is a lovely lady there. She's just there to that side. She's got some things that she's raising. It's okay, sister. Is raising some money for charity. If you see her afterwards, please go up to the table at the back and have a look for her as well, and she will explain to you what she's doing. But in the meantime, between time, and sister.
Yes, hello. I am a human being and I see all my human beings as my family. I didn't do anything apart from go on marches because all I was doing is praying, what should I do? Because we all have different roles to play in this world. And slowly and gradually, because I've got things to do with Palestine on my Instagram and in WhatsApp groups, I started getting contacted by families in Gaza. I'm overwhelmed. I'm trying to help them. Some of them have got links. We can send money to them. I'm an artist. I'm making little cards. I call them Peace with Justice and Oneness, Love, Freedom cards. They're £10 each. Every one is unique. They're all painted on silk with dyes. And I also have the posters for 3 of the families here, which have QR codes. People can do direct donations. One family got a strike on their tent 2 months ago. She lost her eldest son, she lost her brother, her legs were broken. She's just beginning to crawl out of that terror. She's been given a tent by a charity. I'm sending money for her family to have food. And we got her a mattress, but she needs blankets, she needs food, she needs clothes for the kids. Another family, Shahd, his wife had a baby in August, and he keeps messaging me, Grandma, babies need a lot of things. Can you get me more donors? I'm out of my depth. I'm overwhelmed. I need to get other people coming in with me to help. And I've got more families queuing up.
If you speak to the sister at the back, there are some information. And just to let yourselves know as well, now, we as an organization, putting events like this, they cost money. Protests, they cost money. Issuing flyers, trying to get equipment like this for speakers. Please, if you can, make some donations for our next events that are coming up. There are QR codes there on each table. There's a bucket there as well. Whatever you want to give, whatever little you want to give, that will help. Now, don't run off, everyone. I know you're going to be hungry. We got some samosas, family samosas. There's samosas coming as well. But it's very important now for our last speaker that's coming on. And it's not easy to get scholars to come and support the movement. There haven't been many scholars in the last 2 years who have been standing up for Palestine. One way or another, they need to break the mold, move away from the committees. More and more imams need to come, and they're our leaders. This is aimed at the Muslim community. We say there are more than 2 billion Muslims around the world, and they can't go and liberate Palestine. That's a shame on us, that we have to have events like this. We have to be running up and down United Nations and protesting for a military intervention. It should have been a long, long time ago that a revolution needs to begin. Muslim Ummah needs to wake up. There's leaders in Pakistan that are locked up. If he was out there today, Imran Khan, he would have done something about it. You know, Pakistan has the air force to do it. You know, what happened in 1967, everybody knows what happened to the Zionist pilots. They wiped them out from the sky. But everybody, the Ummah needs to join and they need to lead. No talking is done. Erdogan, Turkey, every talking is done. It's time for action. Now is the time for a military intervention. Ummah needs to wake up. They need to have a revolution starting. I talked about revolution before. A revolution needs to start in Pakistan. आपको जागने का टाइम है. आप सो क्यों रहे हैं? सड़कों पर जाएं और इमरान खान को निकालें. ये गद्दार जो हैं पाकिस्तान में बैठे हैं हुकूमत, उनको बाहर निकालें. This is a message to the people of Pakistan. You need to rise up. You need to wake up. Done talking, done protesting. Get the real leaders out so we have a military intervention. Someone needs to lead and the Muslims need to wake up themselves. Now, make some noise from Shaykh Asrar. You know, he has been speaking for Palestine. They're trying to silence him. Where he's speaking in the mosques, they are reporting him to the charity commissions. He's going on YouTube, they're shutting him down. Instagram, his videos, they're taking him down. TikTok videos, they are taking him down. Why? Because he's speaking about the truth. He's one of the imams that is speaking about the truth. We have other imams out there. Imam Bilal, one of his students, speaking about the truth. We have the Bradford brothers. Imam Asim, who came to our demonstration in June. They're speaking. Imam Adal was meant to come down. These imams are not messing about. But more imams needs to come down. Shaykh Asrar called, what a lot of people don't know, national call to action in Birmingham. We need big protests in Birmingham, not just like London. We need Birmingham to be stand still. But people are not listening. Organizations are sidetracking, boycotting. This room should be full. But there's activists out there that want supporters. There's activists out there trying to call Shaykh Asrar anti-Semitic. Shame on them. Shame on them. What anti-Semitic is this sign? Everybody who sat on this stage, are they anti-Semitic? Smashing Zionism is anti-Semitic? No, it's not. It's the truth. They need to be smashed. Smash! 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 Now a round of applause for our Shaykh Asrar. Please come forward, Shaykh Saab. Come on everyone. Shaykh Saab, one of the bravest scholars that's going not locally, nationally and internationally.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Very quickly, just to follow up on what was said prior to me. For instance, the UN recognized what they refer to as Israel in 1947, giving 55% of Palestinian land to Jewish migrants from, or settlers from mainland Europe, entering into Palestinian land, giving them 55%. What does that tell you about the UN? So when Mr. Magennis was mentioning the end of the Labour Party, it's in fact what we should be calling for is the end of the international system. The entire system is corrupt from its core, and that is what needs to be called out. But when we make this division, what we need to take to account, for instance, recently Tommy Robinson held this flop protest in London, but these patriots were carrying the Israeli flag. Does that make any sense? That you want to make Britain great again? I would like to ask, when was it great in the first place? Was it in the time of Victoria, Queen Victoria, the imperialist, or was it great when you had the people fighting for their rights in the 1900s? He doesn't talk about the slums. These were slums. Birmingham was a slum before the Pakistani migrants came here and helped in rebuilding Birmingham. Our ancestors will tell you, my grandfather was recruited into the British Army in what is today called Pakistan, and he was sent to Burma to fight. That is why he ended up here. But they will tell you that when they say Britain was great, the white working class people were not in a great form at that time. They were in a bad state. So Tommy Robinson, you're making fake history up about how Britain was great. Yes, it was great for the imperialist rulers at the time, but it wasn't great for the working people of this country. In fact, when people arrived, when the migrants arrived, they were shocked how the working class white people didn't even have shoes to wear, post-World War II. So today, the only institute that was great in this country, which is the NHS. They want to destroy the NHS. They want to finish the only great thing that was given to the working class people at that time, post World War II. But what did they have pre-World War II? Now, how does that even relate to Israel? Why they called me anti-Semitic is because sometimes I called out things like saying Rothschild family, the banking family, and I'm not going down the domain of conspiracy theories. I'm talking facts that the Rothschild banking family purchased land in Palestine pre-1900 with the project which I refer to as the Bankers Project. Why did I refer to it as the Bankers Project? Because the Rothschild family is a banking family. And they happen to be Jewish. And they happen to be Zionist. At that time, when the Balfour Declaration was written in 1917, it was addressed to whom? To Mr. Rothschild of that time. And that is what I pointed out. Now, they want to refer to that as anti-Semitic, but Benjamin Netanyahu is as Semitic as my neighbor's dog. Yes? He's not Semitic. The man's Polish. Yes? You want to talk about immigration, you want to talk about Tommy Robinson has to realize the world is not divided on racial lines. It's divided in accordance with modern capitalism. This is why the Arabs are behaving in the way they are behaving. You go to Mecca, so you guys haven't been to Mecca, but you go to Mecca, why are Muslims performing tawaf, which is the circumambulation around the Kaaba, and then going to McDonald's afterwards? Does that even make any logical sense? Why are they having Coca-Cola? Before the current system, what happened in Mecca, if you went as a poor person, the Caliph, they would have subsidized hotels for the people. The people who arrived were poor. Now what are they doing? They are building Hilton Hotel in Medina, in Mecca. And this is a capitalist system. That is why there is no military action. And I call for military action, as people who are familiar with me, over a decade ago, and the Jewish Chronicles, which should be renamed. It shouldn't be called the Jewish Chronicles, it should be called the Zionist Chronicles. But this Jewish Chronicles, rag newspaper, they covered the story. It was a shock to their system that this cleric is calling for military intervention. I was in fact calling upon the Pakistani army to intervene. Now the good thing that we do have in Pakistan is a tribal system where everyone can actually send a message to the general at the top. You can reach them. It's very easy to do so. But I call for military action then. Okay, we address all these capitalist Arabs and capitalist states surrounding Palestine today. If they are not willing to intervene militarily, which they cannot as well, the bombing of Doha demonstrated they cannot even muster a defense of their own countries. But the minimum what you should do, okay, I'm not calling for military intervention. I'm calling for you to just open your borders. Open the borders. Mr. Erdogan, if you open the Turkish borders, you opened the Turkish borders to carry out a revolution in Syria. Yes, you allowed thousands of fighters to enter for a NATO war. You allowed and permitted even people who joined ISIS from here, from the UK, they were allowed to enter the Turkish border and enter Syria to destabilize Syria. But all of a sudden, Mr. Erdogan, you close the borders down now when it comes to Palestine. Similarly, the Jordanians, Malik al-Bandura, Abdullah, the king of Jordan, they call him the king of tomatoes. Malik Bandura, he trained people, trained fighters to enter Syria. They were trained in Jordan. But now when it comes to Palestine, the borders are what? Closed. And I will tell you, the IDF are not brave. They are not brave fighters. Because Gaza has demonstrated that people who are not militarily as equipped as what they refer to the Israeli diaper force, they are not as militarily equipped, the resistance fighters, yet the resistance fighters have demonstrated that they can take on the military force of Israel, which is backed today by Donald Trump. And we would want to ask, what has happened to Donald Trump? Is it the Epstein files? What is it? What has happened to Donald Trump? Of course, he was a bad one from the onset. He was the one who declared Jerusalem as being the capital for Israel, an illegal move on any account, according to their so-called international law and in accordance with our Islamic law. Donald Trump, what has happened to Donald Trump? Why is Donald Trump acquiescing to all the requests of Israel? These are the questions that need to be asked regarding the international system, which is a decadent system. It favors the elite over the underclass. It's not a north and south divide. It's not, do not look at it as a racial divide. Some people will say it's a class divide, but it's to do with those who have money and those who do not have money. The Middle Eastern regimes, some of them, the oil regimes, have money. That is why they are deemed as human beings. But those who are deemed as subhuman are the ones who do not have that money. They do not have the resources, or the military resources, or the financial resources, all these type of resources. This is why I did call for a 1 million man march years ago. There's an old video that again perhaps went on Memory TV. Those of you who are not familiar with Memory TV is a channel, a former Mossad channel. So Mossad, they have a TV station called Memory TV. They make clips of people to create awareness amongst the Jewish population of what they refer to as Israel, which currently is as brainwashed as the Germans were during Nazi rule. Currently, those people are as brainwashed. The propaganda, they believe in everything. They are brainwashed the way the Germans were under fascist Nazi rule. So, Memory TV, they placed that I called for a 1 million man march. Okay, if we cannot convince those compromised militaries to take an intervention militarily into Palestine today, we call upon the next step. What is the next step? The next step is open up your borders. Open up your borders. Open up Turkey, the border between Syria and Turkey, Erdogan. Similarly, Ahmed al-Shara, open up the Syrian border. Similarly, Jordan, open up your borders, and we will have a civilian 1 million man march into what is occupied Palestine today. They cannot kill millions of people who decide to march back into Palestine. The Palestinians alone, who were evicted from the Nakba in 1948, they alone are sufficient. But I'm saying no, let's call for an international march into Palestine today, and then we will see the response of the international decadent order that we have. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Make some noise for Shaykh Asrar. Thank you very much, Shaykh Asrar. Now, also, Shaykh Asrar has written a book as well called Intellectual Intifada. It's outside there, you can have a look at it. And there's also, Shaykh Asrar was talking about the money. There's Follow the Money. Have a read of that as well. It's outside where the teas and coffees are. There's a stall there. So please make some noise from Shaykh Asrar again. We need more and more scholars to come forward. Shaykh Asrar is one of those scholars that in July basically marched with George Galloway. We will be marching again on the 18th of October. We're just waiting to get it confirmed. It's going to be a 2 years remembrance to the genocide that's been committed, the live stream genocide we're currently seeing. Please, please, everybody here, support us. We need more activists. The people that are here to join Activist Independent Movement. We can't just do it on our own. We thank all the coalition partners across the UK, in West Yorkshire for Palestine, Wakefield for Palestine. We are the people. The London organisation Power Plus. Also thanking Greenwich for Palestine Action as well, who are here with us. We also thank the health workers and allies as well, Caesar Gaza, and also Leicester Massive and other organisations that support Activist Independent Movement and the independent activists. We need more people, young people, old people, everyone, every race to join the Activist Independent Movement. We need help. We can't just do it on our own. We need people to help us be the grassroots activists. Activists like yourselves need to join up with us. Come, educate the community. If we don't educate the people, education is the key talk about the BDS work that needs to be done. Go to these shops where you're eating, tell them how important it is. You know, don't have Pepsi, don't have cola, there's ice cola. There's many organized businesses that are doing that. If they're not doing it, don't eat in there. You know, hurt them in their pockets. You know, go to the protest. You know, there's a national demonstration happening on the 11th of October in London. It is very, very important. Shaykh Asrar saying a 1 million march to Gaza. The borders, open up the borders. People have already gone there. They didn't open up the borders. That's why Shaykh Asrar is saying open up the borders. But we need more than 1 million at the next national demonstration in London on the 11th of October. Many years ago, when they went for to stop the Iraq war, 2 million people went down there, correct? 2 million people. Everybody was there. Even I was young then as well. We went down there. What we're saying is shatter that record on 11th October. Book the coaches. If the mosque can't speak, they'll get money and donations at Jummah. Put those donations towards a coach. Pay for people who can't afford to go down. If people, businessmen out there, you can't contribute, put the coaches on for the national demonstration. That is important that more than 2 million people land, bring London to stand still on the 11th of October at the national demonstration to let them know we've had enough. Open the borders. Military intervention now. One state Palestine now. Come on, voice. You are the voice for the voiceless. Speak up for the Palestinian people. It's not good the same old people going in every month. There's hardly a demonstration I missed in London. But I was there for the first demonstration. The 1 million demonstration that came out of Palestine. You all remember 11/11 November. You remember it. We was all there. Stand still. Make it stand still. Let them know what's going on. Now's the time, people, to take action. More than 2 million mosques, business people, get the word out there. Share these videos, yeah? Get the message out there. 11th October and 4th October, there's a demonstration in Birmingham happening as well. Yeah, know their names. At 12 p.m., at 6 p.m., opposite the Lloyds TSB Bank on Corporation Street. They're trying to silence in the Birmingham City Centre. There's places on New Street and High Street now. You can't preach, you can't play no more music. We know they're not silencing them. They're silencing us. They're silencing our megaphones. They want silencers. We need to come, everybody come on the 4th October. 80,000 children or more have died. We need to have, read out their names. Okay, Brother Arif, you want to say something?
Right, just a quick word. Another important action taking place at Parliament Square. You're all familiar with that, with the elderly taking action. So 4th of October, everybody spread the word. We need lots of people to get involved. We need to stand up. 4th of October, Parliament Square, spread the word.
So if you're in London, the activists are here from London, please attend the 4th October in Parliament Square. If you're in Birmingham, the West Midlands, come and join us. Have numbers out there on 4th October. Read out those children that innocently have died. You know, we've had enough. Have we had enough? Yes. Have we had enough? Yes. So what are we going to do? Smash! 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 And what are we calling for? One state! One state! One state! One state! Give a round of applause to all our speakers today. Ousman, Noor.
I'm asking everyone to give a round of applause for Brother Daniel and the activist independent movement. I've been following them. They are tireless, absolutely committed individuals, willing to break so many boundaries to make this happen. Thank you so much, Daniel. We're not going to take questions because we're already late, but we will be here as a community to continue to talk to each other. Let this momentum continue. Thank you so much.
There's some samosas. I'm going to go and get some place. Everyone, don't run away. Have some samosas. If you want to chat with the speakers, if they're free, please chat with them. You know, if you want to have a word with Shaykh Asrar, please have a word. Follow Activist Independent Movement on Instagram, on Twitter, and also follow us on TikTok as well.